Family disasters, clashes of characters, don't all dramas between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law start like this? This story was no exception, but it did not start like all the others like it, Viscount Millis and Irelia Millis. This reception is important for Irelia. Her fiancé Hans will also be present. Let him behave properly. Also, today's event is a great opportunity to make a name for yourself in social circles. My daughter understood everything. The daughter must be extremely polite. There are stately blondes standing over there. They are representatives of the Leighton house. That handsome young man with ice-colored eyes is the young Duke of Leighton, and next to the heir is the former Duchess of Leighton. But this means that the former Duchess is a noble daughter from an impoverished family who was sold to the ducal house. She is a widow, her husband having died shortly after her marriage, and the stepmother of the current Duke, Wilhelmina Leighton, who is younger. The main character of all rumors, the Grand Duchess Chita Melisse, is happy to welcome the Leighton family. Viscount Millis honored all the members of the noble family and turned menacingly to his daughter, which is why Irelia stood there impolitely. The young miss immediately bowed awkwardly in a curtsy. She was glad to greet His Excellency. And the whole family of the Leighton clan. Here the girl began to feel sick. Her stomach burned her abdominal cavity. The urge to vomit rose to the top. Irelia immediately covered his mouth with his hand in fear, but not at such a crucial moment. It would be a shame. What should she do? The girl had been starving herself for several days to stand out at today's reception, and in the end she was about to disgrace their family. Viscount Millis stood there with a stony expression on his face, looking at his daughter, telling her to bow properly immediately. Why do all the girls think that such painful thinness, just bones covered with skin, is normal? The newly minted Duke of Leighton and Viscount Millis stared at the Grand Duchess in amazement. Not only is this poor thing so thin, but she has also squeezed herself into a corset and can barely walk in these heels. What's going on? Wilhelmina grabbed the girl's cheeks with her hands. Is she even there? At least something. We need to fix this urgently. There isn't even a drop of healthy blush on this poor lady's face, so why disappear like that? Wilhelmina's eyes seemed to reflect the ocean depths. There was a calm strength and bottomless unknown in them. Let the grandmother see how skinny her granddaughter has become. What's going on? So, before her marriage, Wilhelmina was a noble daughter of a family drowning in debt. Wilhelmina immediately found work for herself and spent all her energy to earn money for her family. This exhausting feeling was familiar to her. Was it possible that she had been the eldest daughter in her past life? And at that moment, the main character remembered her past life. The memories were irreversibly etched into her consciousness. She was a teacher at a training center and died at the age of 32, and was later reincarnated in a fantasy world. And if you use the knowledge and teaching experience from your past life, the new one can become much easier. However, at that moment, her new family suddenly went bankrupt. A relative stole her father's seal and squandered their entire fortune on gambling. As expected, the girl herself was sold as if she were confiscated property. In this fantasy world, the concept of human rights is barely discernible. Even renunciation of an inheritance is impossible. Then the doors of the dungeon opened, and a noble man with an aristocratic bearing and a cruel look entered the slaves. That woman over there with the blue hair and inky eyes will do. My lord will buy her. This is how the main character was sold to an elderly aristocrat who had already buried 4 of his wives. And now the girl's surname was Leighton. It was said that this was the most influential noble family in the West. But since this old man had already buried 4 wives, there was definitely moral and physical violence at home. Maybe Wilhelmina should just run away once they get to the mansion, although that's unlikely. You need to pull yourself together and bravely face all the upcoming difficulties. Here's the thing. Their master has passed away. The owner died yesterday of a heart attack. They did not have time to hold the wedding ceremony, but the lady must be at the funeral. Well, she got married. Her mother wouldn't have believed it, and in record time she became the widow of the most influential man in the West. Wilhelmina was not introduced to the Leighton family, nor shown the property, but simply placed in a separate estate. At the time, the staff said that everyone around their former master was in shock, and it would take time for everything to settle down. 2 months have passed. It would be good if the eldest lady dined with the Duke in the main castle. Anne need not worry about her mistress. Wilhelmina is fine. She enjoys her life in solitude. The personal maid is so worried about the young lady. She is here all alone in utter melancholy and despondency. Anna has no business at the main house today. Last week was the investiture ceremony. The new Duke is still busy. And soon there will be a New Year's reception, where a high-ranking guest from the imperial family will arrive. Wilhelmina is truly happy with her life. living much more luxuriously than she did during her family's ruin and debts. Now the girl even thinks that it would be really nice to stay here forever. But most likely, as soon as everything is settled, she will be thrown out of here. The family does not need a young widow whom none of them even knows. Once Wilhelmina is kicked out of the estate, you can return to the capital and open your own business or go on a journey. But surely these noble persons will at least give something for the young widow's journey, at least some capital. There was a knock at the door. "What's the matter? Anna forgot something. This is not the mistress's personal servant." He apologizes for disturbing her, but Miss Layton wants to see the lady, and this impulse does not bode well. Now the Duchess of Layton in this estate is the wife of her deceased husband's son, and what does she need? The conversation will be about the future of a young widow who is about to say goodbye to her luxurious life. Does the Duchess of Layton really want to talk to the girl right now? Can she postpone it for at least a month, alas? But no. Well, that means the girl simply has no other options left. It's time to accept her fate. The young man led the young widow down the corridor and added that his mistress had asked Miss Layton to watch her speech. What, that is, this newly minted, kept woman wants Wilhelmina to know her place and recognize her as the mistress of the house. The circumstances are complicated. Wilhelmina is still senior in position, but the Duchess values hierarchy. So the Duchess of Layton demands to be treated like a daughter-in-law. What a pathetic sight. The wife of the young Duke of Layton must also be younger than Wilhelmina, and at the same time demand general recognition and superiority. So this is the private chambers of the new Duchess, the perfect lady, the flawless pearl of the West. Helena von Layton, golden hair, upright aristocratic posture, and a serious nuisance for the heroine. It will be difficult to find a compromise with this lady. She has completely different goals. And besides, it seems that for this newly minted Duchess, discipline is more important than pride. The blonde milady's azure eyes immediately flashed. Well, she noticed Wilhelmina, and there was nothing kind in her gaze. The Duchess of Layton looked closely at the young widow and greeted her mother. Helena is serious. Yes, the situation is quite unusual. The daughter-in-law is older than Wilhelmina herself, but at the same time she calls her mother. Helena is probably immensely irritated by this reality, and what will she do? Welcome to the principal seat of the Grand Duchy of Layton. The Duchess is pleased to welcome the widow. Well. Why all this bravado? A young widow younger than her daughter-in-law. Why this ridiculously inappropriate tone? Wilhelmina smiled welcomingly. Today was their first meeting in a long time. But the newly minted Duchess was adamant and kept the widow at a distance, and her visit really did drag on. The blonde girl pointed to a chair for the main character. "Let the widow of the late Duke sit down here." Then Helena waved her hand to the maid and ordered her to brew some fresh black tea. It will be done. What a fate this heroine has. At such a young age, she has to pretend to be a mother-in-law. However, now the girl has no other options. She has nowhere to go and nowhere to expect help. And Helena von Layton is a representative of imperial blood and the new mistress of this house. The maid knocked on the door and wheeled in a cart with a luxurious tea set. The tart aroma of tea filled the entire space. Helena ordered that a cup of tea be placed in front of the young widow first. She was the first to receive the title of the ideal lady. This girl became a star of high society, a role model for all noble maidens. Duchess von Layton hopes the widow has been well these days. That's right. It's a great honor for Miss Wilhelmina to become part of the great Layton family. And how is the Duchess doing? Mrs. von Layton is doing as usual. Every day of hers is spent in countless worries. Well, of course. Apparently this cutie is trying to say that she forgot about the widow because of her excessive workload. Outside the window, the rays of the welcoming sun played with the splashes of the fountain. What a beautiful garden next to the main estate. I wish I could sit next to the pleasant coolness of the fountain in the garden now. Instead of all this, Helena put down her cup. So the widow must understand that the mistress of the Layton estate invited her to talk not out of boredom. They have an unresolved issue. Well, of course, now that the luxurious life that had just begun had come to an end, they needed to discuss Lady Wilhelmina's future. The girl knew that one day this would happen, but where would they send her now, and what should she do anyway? First of all, Duchess von Layton wishes to announce that the family wishes to accept her as a full member. What? Wilhelmina didn't hear right now. The girl immediately jumped up in place. Helena definitely wanted to say this. Well, she was so shocked that she couldn't contain her emotions, and she embarrassed herself in front of Miss Perfection. Once the mother-in-law becomes a real part of the Layton household, she will need to take part in New Year's Eve receptions. The New Year's reception is incredibly important in the ducal house. The heroine knows this, although she has not been in high society. And if Wilhelmina shows up there, even the most influential Leighton family will not be able to avoid gossip. Moreover, there will be a high-ranking guest at the reception. This person clearly has an outstanding status. It's unpleasant to admit it, but Wilhelmina is a stain on the reputation of the Leighton house, and why such mercy? It is hardly an act of pity. And not charity, but what did this person suddenly need from the main character? The title of mother-in-law itself gives a lot of power. Allowing it to be kept due to emotions would be too risky for the family. After all, in the corridor before meeting her, the butler clearly stated that his mistress strictly adheres to the hierarchy. Helena does put rules above her pride, but is Wilhelmina really above her in this hierarchy? There are only 2 ducal families in the empire. Leighton is one of them. And the only person who could exert pressure and influence on this family is His Majesty the Emperor. The disdainful blue eyes immediately froze. Helena choked on her own tea. The answer was obvious. Well, it means that the young widow hit the nail on the head. It was not her interlocutor's decision at all. It seemed that the emperor had made it clear to the young widow that he was watching her and that she was being honored. If you remember, the new emperor ascended the throne last year. He is still young, but already shows great promise. The new ruler is supported by the Eastern nobility, who played a key role in his ascension to the throne. But the Leighton family is the center of the Western nobility, and that's where the plot begins. The first empress, the wife of the former emperor, gave birth to the eldest prince and Helena, and then died. And the current emperor is the son of the second empress. He overthrew the eldest prince and took his place on the throne. Helena is the elder prince's sister, which means she and the Leightons are his political enemies, but they have a powerful family. The Leightons have considerable influence and wealth. Even the emperor cannot easily touch their family. To denigrate such a house and carry out political intrigue against them is not an easy task. If it weren't for the sudden death of the previous duke, wait, here it is, his death is the breach. Judging by Helena's reaction, the emperor decided to take advantage of his death. Now the picture becomes clearer. A cruel and immoral duke, who has killed 4 wives, suddenly dies himself. And the House of Leighton, which bought the 5th wife for the late duke, is now trying to get rid of her like trash. This is flagrant immorality. The emperor controls all the noble registers. This is enough for him to intervene. And except for His Highness the Emperor, no one would have forced the ducal house to accept a great lady from an impoverished family. As a result, the powerful Leighton family was bound in its decisions and obliged to accept Wilhelmina. It is better to have a young widow under one's roof than to enter into open conflict with the emperor. Even if the newly minted ruler did not exert pressure, the Leightons were clearly scared and decided to play it safe. Whatever the case, this is further proof that the Leighton household is very sensitive to the political situation. And now the family cannot afford to kick Wilhelmina out. On the contrary, they will have to do everything to ensure that she does not run away. Very interesting. So now it's the girl's turn to dictate her rules, but she can't be too impudent. What wonderful news. From this day on, her story here will change. Helena feels it too. Princess Helena stood in silent shock, clearly not expecting such insight from the widow. Well, it means that there are now 2 influential parties putting their figures forward on the political arena. The heroine gracefully placed her cup on the saucer, and from the looks of it, Wilhelmina will be given an interesting role. So this is what palace intrigues are. Before, the girl had only read about such things. Meanwhile, Helena's eyes sparkled with displeasure, and she began to nervously squeeze the folds of her dress. Life in a separate estate is beautiful and full of luxury. Since Lady Helena so requests, the widow will attend the upcoming reception. But the young lady doesn't have the appropriate clothes or skills, so she'll need some help. After all, a noble lady's outfit is a reflection of her home and society. There is no wrong move here. Yes, yes, blonde, you will have to buy something for your young and beautiful mother-in-law. They say that it gets quite cold in the West in winter, so the girl could do with some outerwear. In that case, the young duchess will immediately send the tailor to her mother-in-law. Helena waved her hand nervously at the maid, but the tailor needed to be sent not only to the young widow. What? Wilhelmina will need another 30 sets of clothing for her staff in the house. What? The girl couldn't help but notice that all her assistants were dressed too lightly. Especially the girls, their clothes are too light. It's not hard to guess who exactly made them wear such tight dresses. Her poor personal servant Anna goes into Wilhelmina's private chambers every day to at least warm up a little. It seems that the girl didn't forget anyone and counted everyone, so that should be enough. Helena blinked her eyes in amazement. Her mother-in-law was confident in her request. She definitely didn't need anything else. The main character broke into a disarming smile, confident in her decision. The young Duchess looked so stunned, she clearly expected different demands from Wilhelmina. Apparently, Helena believed that, having sorted out the situation, the widow would demand money and take advantage of her new position. However, Wilhelmina has no intention of being greedy. Her position is still precarious. And even though the situation has now turned out in favor of the young widow, she is still a nobody here without any connections. And if they push things too far, Wilhelmina could end up as just a nominal mistress without any real power. Therefore, when the ducal house shows mercy, it must be accepted calmly and nobly. In that case, the new member of the ducal house will go, "Wilhelmina has a meeting scheduled in the morning. Time for the little laundry, kids. There is magic in this world. Why not invent a washing machine and hot water? Well, okay, the girl herself will try to help these poor things. Now she can do it." By the way, Wilhelmina had almost left, but she had completely forgotten to say something to the new Duchess. The princess immediately straightened her back, tensely preparing to parry. Her mother-in-law considers Helena a wonderful daughter-in-law. Blue eyes immediately widened in surprise and confusion. Helena immediately came to her senses and returned her facial features to their previous, reserved appearance, which is what her mother-in-law meant. This is not just an act of politeness, but sincere praise. The young widow says it without any shadow. It is not easy to impartially call someone you can't stand mother, because behind this face, there is a strong and persistent character. To wear the mask of the ideal housewife in the Leighton household, you have to swallow your own slack and endure a lot for the sake of your position. Today marked the beginning of a large game, the outcome of which is still unknown to anyone. The newly minted mistress of the estate stood by the window and tried to figure out who her young mother-in-law was. Well, today's meeting has given rise to many questions and thoughts in Helena. She needs to be watched closely. The butler assured his mistress that Lady Wilhelmina was much kinder than she might seem. In just 2 days, Mrs. Wilhelmina remembered all the names of the staff in the estate, and she also takes great care of all the servants. Of course, sometimes the young widow can speak harshly because of her concern for them, but she is very kind. And she always worries about the entire staff. It's very interesting whether the widow is really just a kind girl. It's unlikely. She was only able to understand the Leighton's position in the political arena from a short conversation. Wilhelmina may have a humble background, but she clearly has the ability to analyze accurately and quickly. But she did say that she studied political science at the academy, and a political scientist cannot simply be naively kind. So this could all be a clever game. You can send the butler. He came from the imperial palace. However, he is too fair. You can't rely on him in such moments. The meeting with the children is already in half an hour. The meeting was scheduled for an hour, but now it will have to be cut short. Helena spent too much time in her thoughts. But why are the children already running around outside? We need to tell the nurse so that she can better monitor their schedule. The little girl wants to see her mother as soon as possible. If the boy picks her flowers, her mother should like them. The young Duchess rolled her eyes and drew the curtains, the children's screams only distracting her. Helena began to pace back and forth across the room again, her mind once again occupied with her mother-in-law. And what does this even mean? The princess's face became gloomy. What kind of game is this girl playing? The young widow said that she considered the princess a wonderful daughter-in-law for her stepson. And how could one even come to such a conclusion, since today was their first meeting? And then there was that penetrating look in her icy eyes, as if Wilhelmina could see right through her, even though she was younger than Helena. The princess is irritated by this. This girl from nowhere has now received power, and also has an analytical mind, and this is a bad combination. Real world, from the distant audience came an anxious female voice. The teacher can understand this. Return, transmigration, and reincarnation. This is so important. The girl held in her hands that very cherished book called After Rebirth. The heroine turned out to be the princess's mother-in-law. The teacher nodded her head. Yes, she understood everything. Very interesting. This is the basis of all web novels. All returns retain the memory and knowledge that the hero had. Returning in time means going to a certain moment in the past, and transmigration is a transition into the body of another person. Usually, heroes already have information about the body of the character they are moving into, and in Rebirth, the character is completely reborn. This student helped Wilhelmina, but it was still not enough. And in a fantasy world, she would like to be a teacher of world history. She would understand what human rights, working conditions, and culture mean here. Child labor for 14 hours is simply killing her. Who can watch this calmly? It's good that she lives in a separate building. You don't even have to wash and walk around like a disheveled pithecanthropus," the maid squealed. "It's that bad." Why does the maid think she needs to clean at midnight when the mistress is sleeping? Let her clean when it is convenient for her. Among these little ones, the eldest is only 10 years old, but they already have to work. Spend all your energy so that they have the opportunity to simply eat. These kids are forced to do hard work, while those from aristocratic families will continue to live an easy life. Even in the Leighton household, where they are treated like servants, the children are considered lucky. But in this time, telling children not to work means depriving them of their place in society. What a terrible social system. How can it be changed? Here Wilhelmina was interrupted by a child's voice. Why is the young lady looking at me with such a serious expression again? The children are bothering her. Miss Wilhelmina's expression looked so stern. Did the girl really scare the kids with her facial expression? She's sorry. The baby has already eaten the potatoes. Yes, maybe give the girl another portion. No need. The baby's cheeks immediately turned red and her eyes dropped downwards. Apparently, the girl remembered how Wilhelmina Parole sat her on her lap. How cute is this little one? Maybe the baby wants to sit on Mrs. Wilhelmina's lap. The girl's big eyes immediately opened wide and sparkled, but how could she do that, of course? And the eldest lady will continue to live here. Well, in all likelihood, that's how it will be. What a relief! The little one is very happy to hear this. The other children will also be happy with this news. Although these guys are still very young, they already understand the state of affairs in the house. They also thought that the girl would leave the estate. After all, there was so much talk behind the young widow's back. It's worth thanking the emperor for such an outcome. If it weren't for the new ruler, it's unknown what would have happened to her, what the girl is going to do today. The baby will be pulling out weeds in the garden. Autumn weeds are especially tough and require a lot of effort. But there is someone who copes with this very well. His name is Johann. Wilhelmina hears this name for the first time. She thought she had learned the names of all the servants, but Johann works as an errand boy for a daily wage. The young man was hired by a gardener. There was plenty of work in the spring and summer, but in the fall there was almost none, so he found himself in a difficult situation. The children offered Johann to work with them, but he didn't like it. How is this possible? Why might the young man not like their work? He needs money after all. The little girl looked down guiltily and then said cautiously, "Johann is afraid of aristocrats. He thinks that for any mistake he will be beaten with a whip. He saw the previous owner, and Johann has no parents. The children worry about him. He is a good guy, because in winter the guy earns absolutely nothing. The young man lives with his younger sister and works for both of them. Now they have nothing to eat at all. They eat porridge made from tree bark. And all the children communicate well with this boy. Everyone immediately nodded in unison. Well, I'll bet the guys just adore Johann. He has a lot of authority here. And this young man really does his job well. The children immediately nodded. In this case, the girl should meet with a young man. She just needs a pious assistant for affairs outside the home. Meanwhile, young Johann diligently pulled out tough weeds from the ground, not sparing himself. And why do his ears itch so much? In this still very young body, there was an impressive strength that was not typical of its size. Ahead was the luxurious estate of the Duchy of Leighton. The children assure that the eldest lady is very kind to them. However, Johann will never trust the aristocrats again. He paid too dearly for this life lesson. The young hero's fists immediately clenched. His body remembered the previous owner of this house well. The poor young man was beaten for no reason. His pain and suffering brought pleasure to this damn bastard. The former duke hated commoners and considered them all to be just expendable material, trash under his feet. Of course, if he worked as a full-fledged servant in the estate, Johann would have stable money, but it was so dangerous. After all, if suddenly some aristocrat kills the guy, then Lily will be left all alone, his little sister. No matter how much the brother and sister need money, it is certainly not more important than human life. Here, the young man's attention was drawn to a blue-haired lady. She went into the garden and looked around. The heroine sat down and began to examine the ground that Johann had just carefully weeded. Who is this girl? And why is she staining the hem of her dress with dirt? And anyway, why is this lady wrapped up like that? It's not the middle of winter now, and she's wearing outerwear. Although what does Johann care about this lady anyway? He needs to pull out all the weeds in the garden. Well, as luck would have it, all the remaining weeds are concentrated right at the feet of this strange girl. Johann took a cautious step forward. There was not a single servant next to this girl, which meant she was not an aristocrat. And this girl's clothes seem simple, which means she is definitely not from the nobility. The young man approached the stranger and politely announced that he was going to pull out the weeds there. The girl immediately jumped up from her seat looking guilty and stepped aside. Wilhelmina disturbs the young man. She apologizes for disturbing him. Johann bowed politely to the girl. It didn't seem like she was from a noble family, but still, something was wrong. He needs to put all empty thoughts aside and just continue doing his job. Lily is waiting for him. The little sister is hungry. They need to eat something today, so the boy's name is Johann. The boy immediately raised his fearful gaze to the girl she had not left, but was standing right next to him. On the contrary, this miss watched his actions closely. She had heard about Johann from Marina. The little girl spoke enthusiastically about the glorious conqueror of the toughest weeds in the garden. Johann was afraid to make an unnecessary move and simply waited silently to see where this conversation would lead him. All the children consider Johann a kind, older brother. They consider him very smart and noble. What's happening now is that this lady is actually praising the young man. The girl sat down next to Johann so that she was on the same level with him and not towering over the boy. Usually all aristocrats use harsh and intrusive perfumes, but she smells pleasant. There is a mixture of sweet oil and medicinal herbs. This smell seems so familiar. And the boy loves hot potatoes. Somehow Johann didn't understand the lady's question. Of course, this is not the autumn potato harvest, but even now it is very tasty. Johann immediately blushed. He remembered where he knew this pleasant smell from. When his grandmother and mother were alive, they cooked herbs, baked bread, boiled potatoes. Such a familiar smell. So familiar and warm. If Johann has a hard time peeling potatoes, Wilhelmina will help him. The girl also brought the young man hot tea with cinnamon so that he could warm up and rest a little. The conversation with this wonderful boy was pleasant, but he was very wary until they became close. She failed to win the boy's trust, despite the fact that she was an honored teacher at the academy. Shame. Johann asked shyly if he could come to the girl again. He was so touching. Well, of course, Wilhelmina is here every Wednesday. She will be glad to see Johann again and will bring him more potatoes. A short and warm smile appeared on the boy's face. The girl's heart began to beat. He is so adorable. Such a sweet angel with an unwavering will and strong character. She knows nothing of what is happening outside the duchy, and the affairs of the estate itself must be investigated. At the same time, the girl will be able to give a good part-time job to such a wonderful boy. She is already waiting for their next meeting. Wait a minute. The heroine's thoughts were interrupted by someone's approaching footsteps. The butler was slowly walking towards the young widow. Very interesting. He was from the main house. So staff from the main estate were needed in this wing. The butler bowed politely to Wilhelmina. He hoped that the elder lady was okay and what was going on. The man has a message from the younger lady to the older lady. He is here on her behalf. Apparently, Duchess Helena is very busy, that's all. The butler asks to take this into account and forgive her. In this way, the new Duchess only shows that she does not want to discuss the issues personally once again. As a daughter-in-law, she maintains propriety, but has no intention of becoming closer to her mother-in-law, which is not the worst scenario. In honor of the merits of the governor of the border guards, a reception will be held. The younger lady is summoned to the capital. She will not be able to attend. So Duchess Helena wants the young widow to go to the reception instead of her. It's even funny. Mrs. Layton recommended her mother-in-law, hoping that Wilhelmina would become accustomed to Western society. A very delicate and elegant formulation of the word replacement. There will be only a few of the Duke's close associates, the governor of the borders and close acquaintances. A little trick will help the widow fit into high society, as the Layton family pleases. After all, this is only a formal request in reality. If the widow refuses, she will suffer the consequences. At least Wilhelmina will simply replace her daughter-in-law, a completely harmless service. The butler thanks the elder lady. He will send a tailor and a knowledgeable lady to her. And what else does that mean? Madame will appear in the Western world for the first time. She needs to learn its rules. They may differ from the usual ones. So she doesn't look like an aristocrat. Helena wants to teach her manners. Well, the widow really doesn't know much. In that case, let the butler invite the tailor and the knowledgeable lady during the day, and for what reason? It's simple. The widow likes to sleep in the morning. She sacrificed her sleep in Korea during her studies for so long. The next day, the main character was determined that it would be useful to learn something new about this world. A luxurious carriage with gold trim pulled up to the main gates of the Duchy of Layton. The butler invited the young widow to follow him, and Wilhelmina's maid hurried after her. Well, that means today her path as an aristocrat in the fantasy world will begin. Where will it lead her? The silhouette of a knowledgeable lady from Western high society was already visible in the expensive carriage. As soon as the sounds of the invited lady's cane were heard, all the servants immediately leaned their heads. This stately woman is the wife of Viscount Roland and the best mentor for all debutantes. In the Western lands, every young heiress of a noble family dreams of studying with this madam. With the first duties of the senior lady comes responsibility. It will no longer be possible to make a wrong step. Viscountess Roland, author of a book entitled Modern Etiquette for Ladies, has become a hit in the capital. After her husband's death, she did not continue the family line, but voluntarily took up teaching etiquette, raising many ladies. The young widow's training will last 3 days, and it will not be an easy test. Madame Roland once again hit her palm with her fan. This is no good. Once again, everything starts from the beginning. You don't need to lead your head with your gaze. Your chin should be lower. The back should be taut like the string of a musical instrument. It is necessary to straighten the chest and shoulders. The solar plexus should move away from the navel. Hold the edge of the soup plate with your left hand and scoop from the front edge with a spoon. It is advisable to do this without making any sounds. When the soup remains at the bottom, the plate can be lifted slightly. All food must be cut into pieces that are convenient for one bite. If a toast is being made, you should raise your glass to eye level towards the main guest, and then make the toast yourself. The whole day passed like this. Even as a teacher, the girl had never been so exhausted. Being the mistress of one of the most influential and luxurious houses is quite tiring. Of course, Wilhelmina knew that it would be hard for her, but she still wasn't ready to dive into all this right away. And tomorrow the young lady must cope with everything perfectly. She can do it. She cannot disgrace herself in front of her daughter-in-law. The next morning came mercilessly quickly. Wilhelmina didn't even have time to get a good night's sleep. The student maintains an enviable calm even when making mistakes. She maintains her composure. This behavior is worthy of a true aristocrat, and it is all thanks to the help of Madame Roland. There are still some minor flaws, but since the lady will not have to dance, the upcoming reception will go smoothly. That's right, the young widow doesn't have a partner, and that's even convenient. She'll just spend time at the table. And one more thing about how a madam should behave towards a lady who has just made her debut. What's going on with Viscountess Roland? The woman has turned pale and is not feeling well. Madame Roland brought the embroidered handkerchief to her mouth. What was happening? The teacher's voice broke. If the training can be done verbally, it is better to do it in a sitting position. Cold sweat ran down the Viscountess's face. She was clearly not feeling well. There was no point in torturing herself. The woman nodded gratefully to her student. They would do so. The girl carefully took the Viscountess by the hand. Let Madame sit down here. There are no drafts here. The Viscountess sat down in the chair with difficulty now the teacher's strength had clearly left her. Wilhelmina poured her teacher some strong, fresh tea. The Viscountess silently watched the girl. And let Madame Roland take this bundle in her hands. And what is this? Why is Miss giving this? The woman looked at the extended piece of paper and her student's face with confusion. She didn't understand something. Inside this bundle, there is a special stone. If it is too hot, then let the lady put her handkerchief under it. But why does the elder Mrs. Layton give this stone to the Viscountess? There is no need to be modest. The girl noticed that her teacher had very cold hands. The stone would help warm them up. Even during her training, Madame Roland took off her gloves several times and rubbed her hands to warm them up. This is typical for people who have poor circulation and constantly cold hands. Of course, it would be possible to take off the gloves, but the teacher strictly follows proper etiquette, not compromising his manners even now. The Viscountess's face instantly changed as she accepted Wilhelmina's bundle. Well, I must say, the stone is really very hot and has a beneficial effect on her well-being. Madame Roland is very grateful to the girl for her care. This is a very unusual hand warmer. This stone was brought to the elder Mrs. Layton by her servant, and she merely wrapped it in cloth. This fabric is very pleasant to the touch, very light and flowing. From which tailor was it purchased? Wilhelmina did not buy this fabric. She sewed it entirely herself. Wait a minute, that is, Madame Layton sewed such a fabric, which is very difficult just for the sake of her servants. That's right. Her staff was also freezing in the estate. It wasn't difficult. At the educational center for younger students, the girl had to do all sorts of things, sewing being one of them. As the autumn season comes to an end, children start to feel cold doing their laundry. And so, little by little, the girl sewed 20 sets for the kids. She has skillful hands. And don't all noble ladies know how to do this? Embroidery as part of education, but not the use of this skill for the sake of servants. Indeed, few people would do something like that, after which Madame Roland noticeably relaxed and took off her gloves. It was much more comfortable to warm her hands this way, and the Viscountess felt safe next to her. fresh tea with added ginger and fruits. This choice was made by the senior lady herself. That's right, this tea goes well with cool weather and fatigue. Let the teacher drink it quickly. Before her drink cools down, ginger is a fairly expensive medicinal ingredient. But Madame Roland is frozen. She needs to warm up and regain her strength, and this costs a lot of money. In the western lands, the climate is significantly colder than in the capital of the empire. Even in autumn, the weather is more like winter, and Wilhelmina herself suffers from freezing. And from Madame Roland's light clothing, it is easy to understand how much she feels the local weather. So the girl perfectly understands the feelings of her teacher. She also hates the cold. She doesn't understand what it's like to lose a husband, but Wilhelmina understands the cold when her arms and legs are constantly fading. When the dampness and chill penetrate to the bones, your fingers don't obey you, and your skin becomes especially sensitive. Madame Roland leaned back in her chair and took a slow sip to the cozy sounds of the fireplace. The Viscountess drank her medicinal tea completely and gathered her strength, a blush appearing on her face. The teacher confidently placed her cup back on the saucer, her hands no longer shaking. Another thing is that the girl is pleased to see this woman in good health. So during these 3 days, during which the mentor taught Wilhelmina, she would like to sum up the results. As senior Mrs. Layton already knows, Madame Roland is the author of a textbook on etiquette. And for several decades now, she has been educating young ladies from noble families. How to hold a fan correctly, which hand to leave free when walking with a man, what drinks can you drink, and what dishes you shouldn't eat. The madam taught all this to the young girls. It's not an easy task. And after spending many years in this field, the Viscountess realized that true learning cannot be conveyed in words alone. It seems that the girl understands what Madame Roland is talking about, since she herself was a teacher to so many children. You can't put on shoes like this and tighten the strap too much. The child will rub all his feet. No smartphones and pencil cases, headphones and ears are still visible under hair. However, compared to Viscountess Roland, Wilhelmina was simply relaxing at her job. Madame Roland would like to teach ladies to be an example, to embody duty and dignity, regardless of origin. Senior Mrs. Layton immediately jumped up from her seat, the teacher confident that she was ready to get up. Although Madame Roland looks better now, she should still save her energy and not waste it on Wilhelmina. The teacher warmly took the young widow by the hands. She was glad to be called the teacher of such a beautiful lady. The young ward meets the Viscountess's main wishes. She has absolutely everything. The girl already has a way of thinking that cannot be learned even from the best teacher. During these 3 days, Madame Roland watched Wilhelmina's good deeds with great pleasure. What kind of good deeds are we talking about now? Everything was as usual. One only has to look at the expressions on the faces of the maids who serve Madame Layton. Each maid and assistant is very attentive to their mistress. They are sincerely disposed towards her. The concern with which her staff watched the Viscountess scold her student was an unfailing concern for them. Wilhelmina has the most important quality for every lady, so this is where the training ends. There will be only 40 nobles at the celebration, and given the status of the hero of the occasion, it is a surprisingly modest reception. Margrave of the Western lands, this family is as ancient as the ducal houses, and is also a respected family of knights among the military. The Laytons represent the wise elder, while the Margraves represent the warrior who built his fame with only his sword. It was strange that such an event was held in a small circle, but the teacher said that the West was still in mourning. But this is only official. In reality, no one is in mourning in reality. Almost 2 months had passed since the death of her cruel husband, and no one mourned him, which was natural. Helena must have been scared to come to her immoral and vile father-in-law's house, but she held up well. It would be better to set a good example for your daughter-in-law as an exemplary and kind mother-in-law. And the best mother-in-law is the one who doesn't interfere in anything. Wilhelmina will definitely cope with this task. Of course, she wants to experience all the delights of a luxurious life, but for now she is still here on shaky grounds. It's better to just stay away, otherwise suddenly all the dramas will show real mothers-in-law with really nasty characters. The senior lady's maid entered her private chambers and was forced to distract her ladyship from her thoughts. The time had come, the young widow took a deep breath, the celebration would soon begin. Luxurious decoration, famous guests dressed up in expensive outfits, all sorts of gastronomic wonders. Well, as the senior lady of the Grand Duke of Layton's household, Wilhelmina must leave the right impression. In the corner, they were already in full swing discussing the news of the past week and the rising debutantes of this season. There stands the new duke in a pistachio uniform, and he is much younger than expected. Instead of the head of an ancient family, the young man looks more like a startup director, so handsome and pleasant. They say that the Leightons are a family that once broke away from the imperial family, and the golden hair of the heir also speaks of this. The first meeting with the stepson occurs at someone else's party, which is quite ironic. The new duke must accept a stepmother who is younger than him, which is difficult even in modern times. Surely the stepson will feel disgust and rejection towards the young widow of his late father. Here the blue eyes sparkled, seeing the elder Mrs. Leighton. The duke was glad to greet his mother. What? Wilhelmina stretched her face in shock. The boy definitely told her that he is actually older than her. The new duke's name is Michael von Leighton, and he is delighted to meet them and to have their long-awaited first meeting. Well, I mean, this guy is even more handsome up close. Is it legal to be so stunning? And the girl's name is Wilhelmina. The stepmother forgot to add their last name, Madame Wilhelmina Leighton. And what was that? What kind of enslaving cordiality? Why such a warm attitude all of a sudden? It was as if the class leader had welcomed the new student and helped him adapt to the shock. Well, that's it. In view of all the recent circumstances, the Duke asks forgiveness for not being able to provide due hospitality. The girl hadn't felt such intense friendliness for a long time. Her stepson was so busy. In fact, the Duke told his wife that they had better greet their stepmother first, but Helena decided to give her time. That's why the young man didn't come, and why does the wonderful hero even talk about something like this? Otherwise, one might get the impression that the young Duke is gossiping behind his wife's back. Michael definitely understood Helena correctly at such moments. One usually looks at the butler's reaction. Alas, this did not produce any results. The young Duke's butler only smiles and nods. The new head of the family should not be too servile towards a stepmother of low birth. The Duke has to take into account the emperor and maintain the authority of the head of the family, but why is he so cute? The stepson is glad to see his stepmother in good health. She lives comfortably in the outbuilding. This warm and radiant look, this captivating smile, is the new Duke really so naive and welcoming? But Wilhelmina is not in a position to give in to Michael's mood. She lives well thanks to the Duke of Leighton. However, the new head of their family is worried about the place where his stepmother is located. It is so far away. What kind of smiling spear is this against everything in the world? Mother can move to the main castle of the Leightons? What? The shield from everything in the world is activated. Don't worry, she can block everything. There's no need to bother so much. In the main house, servants will be watching her at every step. And besides, this Helena will be there. The new mother-in-law lives on the floor above her stepson's family. A new season of the battle between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The conflict has reached the boiling point. This will already look like a reality show about divorces, and in the end, the stepmother will definitely turn out to be the villain. Wilhelmina will remain living in the mansion allocated for her. It suits her very well. The butler called his master. His lordship must know that everything is ready for the reception. How could it be that during this time butlers are the best guys in this novel? She almost succumbed to the charms of this blonde angel. The young head of the family gallantly extended his hand to his stepmother. It was time for them to greet the guests. What this hero does, it's hard to resist his beauty and charm, and he's also incredibly nice to her. On the other hand, today the girl is replacing Helena at the celebration, so she can't get out of it. She just has to fulfill her role properly. Her future fate in the plot depends on it. The handsome hero stood in the center of the hall next to his young stepmother. Wilhelmina straightened her back. The butler cleared his throat and announced the arrival of Count Churchill from the Lakelands. The Earl of Churchill is pleased to welcome the Grand Duke of Leighton to today's modest celebration. The Duke hoped that the journey had been smooth. Compared to last month, the road had been quiet. Apparently, the elder lady just needs to stand silently, like a mannequin, and repeat the same phrases several times. No one talks to her, but everyone wonders what kind of relationship she has with Michael, and watches the young man's reaction to the interest in the young widow. All these aristocrats are no different from people of low origin, but there was a lot of noise. As soon as the welcoming part is over, you need to grab a plate of dinner and sneak off to the break room. The butler announced the arrival of the Honorable Viscount Millis. Well, finally, what a relief. This is the last nobleman for today. Apparently, Viscount Millis arrived at today's celebration with his daughter. What the hell is going on? Where is this father looking? Why does the child have heels twice as high as Wilhelmina's? This is a real nightmare for a growing and developing teenager's spine. The girl looked at the very young representative of Western nobility with undisguised indignation. And what's worse, this poor girl is wearing a corset that's too tight. How can she even breathe in it? The girl's dress itself is off the shoulder. The father wants his daughter to look older and more seductive. This poor little girl already looks quite pale. Even if my daughter walks more straight, what's wrong with her? If they were in her world, this cretin would already be crucified by responsible mothers. They would punch him. Viscount Melisse moved his daughter closer to the Duke of Leighton and bowed to the new head of the family. The girl cannot help but be worried that this girl also needs to bow down in these things. Here the poor thing turned white and covered her mouth with her hand. The girl's eyes darted around the room in fear. Why is Aurelia so talentless and stupid? This is such an important event. There are only court nobility around. Aurelia jumped up from the couch in fear. Oh no, something irreparable had happened. Her father would be very angry with her. This is the problem. And what should she do now? How can she fix the current state of affairs? Here Aurelia noticed the eldest lady from the Leighton house. And what was her ladyship doing here? The girl vomited for a long time and painfully. Now she feels better. The shocked girl blushed shamefully. What a shame, this will forever leave a mark on her family name. The lady ordered to prepare soup from well-mashed pumpkin. Aurelia will be able to eat it. Why? The poor girl needs to eat and satisfy her unfortunate body. Judging by her unhealthy appearance and look, as well as the rumbling in her stomach, hunger is her constant companion. What the hell is going on now? Aurelia needs to prove herself to the gentleman, not eat pumpkin soup. The elder lady wanted to clarify something. Viscount Melisse's daughter generally eats normally. This poor child is obviously dizzy. The young widow will take care of the girl herself. Her Grace need not trouble herself so much. Let the Viscount go and enjoy the party before she sends him on his way. All the guests immediately began to whisper among themselves. Such behavior is not typical for a noblewoman. The young Duke was as surprised as anyone by his stepmother's kindness. He stared at the girl in amazement. Michael ordered his butler to call and bring the doctor to the restroom. It will be done. Aurelia was shaking with fear and malaise. There was no need to invite any doctor. Let them bring warm water with honey. The doctor is also a nobleman. Under his gaze, she will burn with shame during the vomiting urge. And now finally the poor child can relax. Everything is okay. Soon this day will end. The girl can worry about nothing next to Wilhelmina. Tears were streaming down Aurelia's cheeks. She was ready to collapse from shame, but this lady saved her from disgrace. Why is the elder lady of the Leighton house so kind to the young miss? Senior Mrs. Leighton apologizes to the invited guests for the commotion that occurred at the party. She will be away for a short time, but so that these vultures do not gossip about the child behind her back, let them congratulate the governor. So Wilhelmina voiced her wish on behalf of Helena von Leighton. Aurelia ruined everything. One can only hope that the widow's words carried weight among the guests, and that Aurelia will not be slandered. From a distance, Wilhelmina seemed like such a stern lady, but up close she was so young and so pleasant. The girl handed over a cup of hot drink. Let the girl drink it. It will make her feel better. Aurelia brought the hot mug to her lips with trembling hands. This was exactly what she needed. And what is it? This drink is incredibly tasty, and the smell is so spicy and inviting. The delicate taste of pumpkin soup envelops the palate, and the sweetness of honey covers the tongue. It's incredibly tasty, but if a girl eats sweets, she'll definitely gain weight. You can't do that. No matter how delicious and cozy Aurelia felt right now, she had to stop this impulse of her momentary weakness. Why did the little girl stop drinking her drink? She seemed to like it, but they could ask for another one. What does Senior Mistress Leighton say? The drink is very tasty, and Aurelia is very uncomfortable with her hospitality. This portion of sweet honey is enough for the girl. She has enough for today. Here the girl's empty stomach began to rumble throughout the entire room no matter how much she ate. It seemed that the soup did not satisfy her hunger at all. What portions was Aurelia even talking about? She's still so hungry. What kind of stupid stubbornness is this? A growing organism needs to take vitamins and energy from the food of its owner. Let the little one drink some more tea. Aurelia bashfully lowered her eyes to the floor. Poor, persecuted child. The girl sighed sadly. How could you really put so much pressure on and torture the fragile psyche of a teenager? These children need much more healthy attention and support than those at the academy. And the girl then thought that it was difficult to imagine a more difficult task than her junior class. What does her ladyship do? The girl no longer needs anything. She has no need to burden herself with caring for her. Even if young Melisse doesn't move, the girl should feel much better now. The elder mistress began to loosen Aurelia's tight corset. She no longer had the strength to watch this torment. The girl began to squeal and twitch, realizing that the young widow had begun to remove her corset. Her ladyship should not do this. This corset was tightened for so long by the maids, and a lady should wear a corset. What the hell is going on? Does this woman really have some strange hobbies and motives? Why is this auntie touching the young lady Irelia will tell daddy everything? That's right, the girl simply forgot that the corset hooks now unfasten in the front. The heroine instantly pulled out all the hooks of the tight corset, and Irelia squealed in surprise. Why is her ladyship doing this? Now the girl's belly will stick out and no young man will look at her. If anything continues to interfere with young Miss Millis, they will loosen the pressure on the corset from behind as well. And now Irelia is sitting here in the break room with her skin exposed. What a disgrace! It would have been better if she had disgraced herself in the hall. Let the girl put this on. It will be much more comfortable and warmer for her, and besides, there will be nothing else pressing on her stomach. Stop worrying already. No one will come into this room and see a girl without a corset. So now Irelia can finally eat her soup normally, and it's more comfortable to do so without a corset. Of course, without a corset it will be much easier for any girl, but this will only give freedom for a moment. And then again in this vice, Irelia even has to sleep in a corset. She's already gotten used to not breathing. Although Irelia's belly has started to feel better, the lady cannot take it off until the wedding to keep her waist thin. If you loosen the hooks and unfasten the corset a little, nothing bad will happen. And what about honey? If a girl drinks it, she will definitely gain weight. This skinny girl won't get fat. Why is the lady so adamant the surge of protection is activated? Irelia really wants to object, but sometimes she just wants to give herself a break, even if only for a moment. No one will see the girl here anyway, which means her father won't scold her. You can allow yourself to relax in the presence of this woman. This is so necessary now. A blush and a warm smile appeared on the girl's face, and she felt so good in her soul. Wilhelmina's opinion was not asked, but she would still like to give advice. Let Irelia change her corset to a more spacious one. But the corset that Ms. Layton was so angrily stretching was the most popular model. It is impossible to become beautiful simply by copying what everyone else does. Wilhelmina does not challenge the current canons of beauty. But without health, beauty is useless. Irelia herself sees how she looks. Well, yes, she spent so long preening herself. Just a minute. All the makeup on the girl's chest has worn off. She'll fix it now. In this world, young people consider snow-white skin, untouched by the sun, to be the standard of beauty. It is not that the skin should be bleached. We are talking about the discomfort that these things cause, and it also affects her appearance. Right now, the girl's stomach hurts. Nothing else hurts for Irelia. The girl is lying to her now. If a girl wears this hellish corset every day, then she has probably already started to get constipated, which is something ladies don't talk about. What's the matter? Irelia felt ashamed. And wouldn't it have been shameful to vomit in front of all the nobility? An indescribable shame appeared in the poor girl's eyes, and she immediately became dejected and withdrawn. Of course, the girl was incredibly ashamed, and she could not even imagine such a thing. She just wanted to be beautiful. However, Irelia must understand that no beauty is worth health. But how is it that the girl's father tells her that she is not slim enough, that she needs to lose more weight? And Irelia is going to marry her father. These are problems of his perception, since he does not respect heavier ladies. Maybe girls bullied him as a child because they were bigger than him, and he is simply afraid of them. But what about the groom? Irelia's groom is not like that. That's great. He's clearly a reasonable person, and the girl will live with him, so why torture yourself like that? But everyone goes out for their debut in Tassio dresses, and they don't have any sizes bigger than that. Irelia has always been chubby, but even that didn't stop her. At her debut, she broke almost an entire cake. This is a typical reaction to stress, which she tried to eat away. Someone said something nasty and painful to her. Isn't that right? Back then, everyone called Irelia a provincial noblewoman. They said she wasn't shy about overeating at her own debutante ball. And after that evening, the girl threw up every night because she had tightened the damn corset too much. She tried at all costs to erase all memories of her debut. High heels were killing her feet. And now, in addition to the shameful debut, new rumors will be added. Irelia always felt like a pig among swans. Wilhelmina understands perfectly well how hard it was for the girl. The stupid beliefs of society are to blame. And even now, the girl cannot calmly eat her soup in the presence of anyone. It is true. When Irelia is hungry, she eats very ugly and it looks disgusting, but it is not true. The girl is simply enjoying her food without violating any norms of decency. What's wrong with that? Irelia is very good with cutlery and does everything correctly, except eating is an unforgivable mistake. But other ladies don't even touch food when gentlemen are around. But now, there are only the two of them in this restroom, which prevents Irelia from enjoying her food. Stop shaking already. Neither father nor this gang of vultures will know what the girls were talking about now. Eat something tasty and favorite, enjoy the process, and smile at the same time. How can something like this be considered disgusting and ugly? So Irelia was wrong to reproach herself and consider herself disgusting. She is a lovely girl. This will be their little, feminine secret, so Irelia can eat in peace. The girls clutched the porcelain mug with their thin fingers. No one would take the tea away. There was no need to treasure it so much. The little girl immediately beamed at how much such a small thing could lift one's spirits. This is what Wilhelmina was talking about. You can eat all sorts of delicious things without harming your psychological and physical state. Relationships between peers, even in a fantasy world, are a cruel thing. And it is very difficult. Children can be cruel even here. They belittle the weak, mistakenly believing that they themselves are becoming better. This girl had it rough. Teenage relationships carry a different weight than adult life. Sometimes friends are more terrible than the wrath of parents. Unreasonable hostility, slander without a shadow of guilt. One moment of dissimilarity can turn into a nightmare for a child for the rest of his life. One cannot hastily climb into the soul of such people. A wounded child does not need instructions from a teacher, but unconditional support. Here, Irelia squealed in fear. Something was wrong. Her corset wouldn't fasten. The clock struck midnight. What a relief that both girls had spent the whole time here. After all, the festive reception is about to end and the guests will go home. In that case, it is time for Viscount Millis's daughter to return to her father. Well, since the girl began to feel better and heard the elder Mrs. Layton, she wishes her good luck. Well, Wilhelmina promised to return for the celebration, but did not do so. Apparently, she will be reproached by her daughter-in-law. The girl wants to give Irelia some medicinal herbs and honey to take with her. They help digestion. You need to drink a little. Is it possible for the girl to come to meet the young widow again? Irelia does not mean a formal reception, but a personal meeting as a guest. The girl immediately lowered her head and blushed with shame. Her manners were truly like those of a country bumpkin. How can a young lady ask to visit, and does Wilhelmina have the right to invite guests? And among all this nobility, there are so many rumors about the widow of the Duke of Layton. Will this not harm the girl? By the way, it is customary in high society to organize various meetings. And any noble person usually arranges something of her own. The mentor recommended that Wilhelmina arrange something similar. For example, it will always be appropriate to organize a book club or a simple ladies' tea party. The girl doesn't like to read, so a literature club is not for her. It is not at all necessary to read books for such gatherings. Such meetings serve to strengthen connections. And the young widow needed to establish connections, that is, make friends. The mentor took her by the hand. In the political arena, as in high society, one does not make friends, but influential and reliable allies. It was all one big battlefield, drowning in mud. Viscountess Roland strongly recommended action. Well, to strengthen and secure her position in this world, she really needs support. Wilhelmina doesn't know when exactly yet, but she plans to hold a book club regularly. Is Senior Mistress Layton really going to invite Irelia Millis to her book club? It's a huge honor for the girl. Irelia will be its first participant. It seems like she can't even believe it. Irelia is so happy. You shouldn't jump like that, otherwise you'll get dizzy again. Irelia's father understands the position of every family and would be glad to have the opportunity to be indebted to the ducal house. Madame Layton helped the girl. She will tell her father everything as it really was. How surprising that this child is so happy to be invited to an adult and not particularly fun event. In this era, children have completely different interests and goals in life. Irelia is just one of many. Apparently, the girl is drawn to her good-for-nothing father, which means he is not bad in everything. This is a little reassuring, but on the other hand, this Millisset has plans for his daughter. Monsieur Millis wants to strengthen his position in society with the help of his daughter. He is satisfied with her health problems. Yes, family relationships in this world do not evoke any thrilling emotions. The festive reception was over, the guests had left the house, and the servants were hastily removing the dishes and decorations from the hall. Well, everything went well. Wilhelmina didn't even have to do anything, although Helena will be unhappy. Wait a minute. Where did the new Duke of Layton go? They should be discussing today's holiday. The girl noticed a very young servant next to her and waved her hand at him. She needed this boy's help. He is at the service of the elder lady. The young widow would like to know where she can find the Duke of Layton now. The head of the family has just gone into the courtyard with the remaining guests, where they are drinking. And there is an after-party here, and the second part of the feast takes place in the inner garden, so they drink under the moon. Surely the border governor is there too. I should at least say hello to him. It seems that the girl sent the servants away in vain, since she hardly knows her way around the Duke's estate. It feels like Wilhelmina has been here before and has just been wandering around for a couple of minutes. Here the heroine's attention was drawn to the surface of the lake. It reflected the moonlight and looked mesmerizing. It's incredible here. Nothing will happen if she takes a little walk. Then the girl noticed the silhouette of a man in a military uniform near the shore of the lake. Apparently, one of the guests had already beaten the older lady to it. The man seemed to have a military bearing. And even despite the festive attire, it is clear that such a large and powerful physique belongs to a warrior. Wait a minute, but Irelia and her father were the last guests at the reception. She didn't see this man there. Well, in that case, this is the very same border governor, and today's holiday is in his honor. As the eldest lady of the Leighton family, she is obliged to come out and greet the hero of the occasion. The main character took a few cautious steps towards the powerful silhouette of a man, but almost immediately she stopped and froze. Her attention was drawn to the second silhouette. There was a second person there. The tree crown covered the second man. He was wearing very unusual clothes. This fabric and pattern were not typical for these lands. Apparently the stranger is wearing Oriental clothing, but who could it be? And why does the governor of the borderlands meet under the moon in the shadow with someone from the eastern lands? Wilhelmina carefully pushed forward and listened to the conversation. My lord was sure that he did not want to meet her. Sir, you've been waiting for this for so long, it's okay. Now is not the time or place. And when that very moment will come, can't my lord still get that strange collection of poems out of his head? Not at all. They say that obsession is a terrible torment. Perhaps my lord should consult a knowledgeable specialist. The governor also read that collection. It's clearly written by a loser in love, and this is their entire secret conversation. Somehow weak. The girl can't just leave. She also needs to talk to the Margrave. The governor continued to insist that his interlocutor's behavior was unhealthy. The second man insisted that there must be a right time for everything. We can't let those two notice the elder lady spying on them in the bushes. We need to get out of here. Here, under the girl's foot, a branch treacherously broke in half, and a loud crunch was heard. This is disgusting. The men probably heard this sound, and what to do now? At that very moment, both serene interlocutors turned into wary predators. The border governor quickly found the source of the noise, and Wilhelmina got it. Surprise appeared on the Margrave's face. He was not familiar with this girl. The governor must be facing the Grand Duchess of Leighton. He is pleased to meet her. The man bowed respectfully, Margrave Isenon at the service of her ladyship. And yet the girl interrupted the conversation between these two. Well, nothing can be done. Her name is Wilhelmina Leighton. Margrave Isenon is the most famous idol of all swordsmen from the western lands. As expected, this warrior was giving off an incredibly strong aura, something she had never seen before. I wonder what kind of man is next to him hiding his face under a helmet. The second interlocutor had just been chatting tirelessly, but now he stands like a silent statue. He's barely breathing there. The eldest lady apologizes for not being able to attend the celebration. She had some business to attend to. The governor had already been informed about this, but the organizer of the reception should have dealt with it himself. So the Duchess of Leighton has no need to apologize. She is grateful for your understanding. Milady would be glad to meet the silent guest of the border governor. Perhaps he will be introduced. The mysterious knight hadn't said a word since they had met face to face, which was very strange. It wasn't customary here. The Margrave immediately jumped up to the man and covered him. He's just an acquaintance. What? Is he trying to hide him or something? So the famous warrior is trying to hide the identity of his interlocutor. How interesting. In this case, the girl will not interfere. She doesn't need any extra problems now. Senior Mrs. Leighton heard that the banquet was about to begin after the official part. To be honest, the border governor doesn't drink, but since he was invited, he will have to be there. Wilhelmina didn't know that the governor didn't drink alcohol. His wife just asked him not to. How sweet. So the formidable lion of the empire is at home with a gentle and humble cat. Well done. He also noticeably blossomed when he spoke about his wife. What a warm and pleasant picture. And the eldest lady arrived here to join the celebrants during the feast. Not at all. Noisy feasts are not her type of entertainment. She is here to say hello to the governor. Since her task was completed, she could leave. The Duke had previously been looking for a young widow. The feast is only for the closest relatives. Only the real mistress of the estate, Helena, can be there, and she has no place there. Wilhelmina simply wanted to be polite and courteous while representing Princess Helena's interests, so the young widow knows very well where she should not go. Here, unexpectedly, the second interlocutor clenched his fists. What is this? What is he doing? and the atmosphere around the three of them changed dramatically. What's going on here? The governor again covered his companion with his body, in which case it was time for Madame to return. The Margrave could see the eldest lady off. No need, the servants can handle that just fine. Have a nice evening. The girl bowed in an elegant curtsy, pleased to meet the legend of the empire. To be honest, this is how the heroine imagined the strongest warrior of the Western lands. Here the border governor suddenly stopped the young widow. What was the matter? He would like to ask her a question. The Margrave sighed heavily. Did the Duchess have romantic relationships with other men? What? The great warrior is interested in the personal connections of the elder lady with other representatives of the male sex. The question was already clear. She wasn't hearing things right now. Just a couple of minutes ago, this lion seemed like a peaceful and exemplary family man. Is this character really trying to test the waters for further flirting with Wilhelmina? The eldest Duchess put on a forced smile, alas. She was not at all interested in married men. What? The governor was struck as if by lightning. What does the Grand Duchess mean? Wait a minute. Margrave Isenon didn't mean that at all, the warrior roared. He only loves his beautiful wife. The girl instinctively shrank back. What kind of beast just came out of the governor? How scary. The Margrave came to his senses and immediately apologized to the frightened girl. He was sorry. He was devoted to his beloved, and that's why he lost his temper. The very thought of such a thing was disgusting to the great warrior of the West. The Margrave angrily measured his secret guest with his gaze. It was all his fault. After which he sighed heavily. Well, the elder lady really is a strange person. As was said, what the border governor just said, nothing like that, just thinking out loud. Margrave Isenon would also like to clarify whether the young widow Leighton studied at the academy. That's right. My lord is well informed about Wilhelmina, which is expected. In that case, there is one more question. Would the Grand Duchess believe that there was one man from the academy who was very eager for their meeting? This is a twist. That is, the great warrior of the West knows someone who knew the heroine from her time at the academy. And what does this even mean? What is this mystery around this person? Why can't we just meet? There they could have some tea if the young Duchess and this strange stranger spent their school years together. The girl turned her attention to the second man. He did not take his eyes off her and closely watched her reaction. Would the young Duchess have believed that someone she met there was now waiting for her? And this is what the girl should answer. She was reborn as the heroine of a fantasy novel. Uncle, she will believe in everything. And in general, now this man looks like in all the shows about fortune tellers and magicians who supposedly help find your path. This is the same TV repertoire whether you believe in your path or not. Or maybe we are talking about a sect here. The eldest Duchess is not interested in new religious movements. The border governor stared at the girl in bewilderment, wondering why she was calling him names. Well, here's a great warrior caught. There's no point in making fun of the Margrave. The man is simply carrying out someone else's will. Wilhelmina giggled. She didn't remember any romantic relationships during her academic years. The widow had 2 or 3 close friends at the academy, but after graduation, contact with them was immediately lost. It is not surprising that after graduation she immediately threw herself into work, while the rest were nobles and dispersed to their family estates. So neither during my studies nor after them, there was not even a hint of romance. Strange, was there really not even a confession of feelings? Perhaps the great warrior confused the Duchess with another. There is hardly another such strange person. Cute. Okay, stop. This mustachioed guy just called the girl weird. What if she starts handing out adjectives? It feels like Wilhelmina was rejected after her confession. Maybe the governor misunderstood. The Duchess had no such connections, acquaintances, or hobbies. She made that clear. But not to even receive confessions of love at her age, that's somehow impudent. Yes, the girl herself was surprised and confident that she would enjoy success. She has no shortage of confidence. The girl has a memorable beauty, a sharp mind, the exact word, how can you not love her? The Margrave froze in shock again. What was the matter? Wasn't this what the uncle wanted to tell the elder lady? Well, let it be so. The heroine quickly said goodbye to her interlocutors in the garden and began to look for the way back to the estate. Yes, it was a strange dialogue. She should have studied harder. Then she would have had a chance to change something in her destiny. And that mysterious man in the helmet, he didn't take his eyes off her. Did she really arouse such curiosity? Although she really does stand out. The mother-in-law, who is younger than her daughter-in-law, is the plot of some absurd drama. So these 2 men decided to get to know the main character of gossip in the Western lands better. Here the girl heard familiar voices. 2 people were sitting on the stairs. It was very interesting what they were doing here. Why are the girls sitting here? It's already quite cold at night. The elder lady came back so early. The little girl immediately jumped up to the Duchess and began to hug her. The girl had enough celebration for today. But why did the Grand Duchess come to the estate completely alone without an escort? It's dangerous. But they live in the castle of the Grand Duke of Leighton. What could happen here? And what are the girls doing here? Anna's shift had long since ended. They were worried about their mistress and were waiting for her to return. Sister Anna was worried that something might happen to their mistress. Well, what is Marina saying? Anna immediately ran up to the little chatterbox and shut her mouth. Marina is so stupid. The maid didn't say that. No, she did, which means even Anna thought that the nobility would ignore Wilhelmina. That's why Anna was very worried about the eldest duchess. How could she just take it all and give it away like that? The maid has nothing to worry about. Nothing bad happened at today's reception. What a relief that their mistress's first appearance in society was pleasant. Anna's heart was finally at peace. This means that little Marina was also waiting for the young duchess. Of course, this is essentially the girl's debut. And today, Her Highness looks especially magnificent. This outfit so highlights her inky eyes and hair. The evening dress was sent from home. It is so magnificent that even Wilhelmina has difficulty finding words for it. Luxurious fabric that perfectly matches the sea-colored hair. A huge, precious stone that adorns the image. Moreover, this stone costs 10 times more than her previous salary at work. Helena tried hard. Although the princess clearly didn't like helping her mother-in-law, she completed the task with flying colors. So Marina is right, the Duchess is really very beautiful today thanks to this dress? It is not true. The eldest lady is more beautiful than any luxurious dress. She shines brighter than any star in the sky. They should thank Marina for the compliment. It's cold here. They should drink some warm milk and go to bed. The girl did not want to disturb Anna once again. At such a late hour, the maid would prepare everything. In that case, let the maid prepare 3 cups of milk, the 3 of them will chat by the fireplace, and it will be done. After all, how can you not get together with the girls after a party and discuss what happened there? So the grand ballroom was luxurious. The duchy castle towered majestically above them. She really was in a fairy tale. But as magnificent as the Leighton family's main castle is, she prefers her more modest mansion. Meanwhile, the hero of the day's celebration was slowly walking across the territory of the duchy. His mysterious helmeted companion always walked next to him. My lord must be nervous. His interlocutor is truly filled with a sense of anxiety. The governor sees this, which cannot but surprise the seasoned warrior, because the man next to him did not flinch even in front of 100 enemies. And a man with such a strong and unshakable spirit can hardly breathe next to one woman. The Margrave still doesn't understand why there's such secrecy, why he can't just take off his armor and greet her. Today, the mysterious guest simply did not expect such a meeting. It is very important for him. But no matter how strong and pure the impulses from this side, a woman named Wilhelmina lives quite well. She shows signs of fatigue and resentment from conflicts within the family, but she holds herself confidently, as if she were the mistress of this house. Of course, the great warrior supports the milord as a sign of gratitude for the service rendered to him. However, his interlocutor must not overdo it, because he understands that he cannot leave his place for long. Of course he understands this. The mysterious young man finally took off his helmet and took a deep breath. It's such a pleasant night today. The damp air gently shields the chiseled features of the interlocutor's face. The young man was grateful to the governor for his assistance. He had incredible ruby eyes and hair the color of deep night, an athletically built body, the bearing of a warrior, and a soft but immediately perceptible strength in his eyes. If Jake sees my lord here in such a state, he will be very upset and disappointed. The wonderful hero chuckled. He understood everything, but there was no other way to get into this holiday. In that case, what does the young man plan to do now? The governor has long been waiting for the young Duke of Leighton. My lord will leave the duchy. He came to congratulate and not to bring discord into the family. The young head of the family greeted the milord radiantly at the reception, but he is unlikely to agree with these words now. It's time for this young man to return to his business, so he is forced to take his leave. There is no point in seeing him off. It would be wonderful to share a cup of wine with my lord, but we will have to let him go. In that case, the border governor no longer dares to detain the young man good evening to him. Here the mysterious guest turned around abruptly and threw over his shoulder to the governor so that he could check the conditions in which she was living. If there is harassment, psychological bullying, and other abominations, let them report this to the young man. It will be fulfilled when this guy talks about her. Something appears in his ruby eyes that you want to submit to at that very second. So finally, the day of the long-awaited meeting with the boy from the garden came. Wilhelmina was so happy about it. So, according to her little informant, the most successful trading guild right now is Goldrail. They really do have everything. They are a new trading company that has only recently received a title of nobility. For ordinary people, the company sells all sorts of small things, and for the nobility, they get all sorts of spices and exotic products. The reincarnated character needs money in case his fate suddenly does not follow the original scenario. The student was right. Now we can count on the support of the Leighton family, but what will happen next, no one knows. Usually, those who are translated use modern knowledge and experience to make a fortune, but she has no such ideas. She is not fit for this while working as a teacher. The girl always did everything according to the program and did not invent anything herself. Is there any interesting news about Goldrail? Well, there is a girl there who sells flour. So the boy understood the essence of the question. Well, yes, this shop sells flour, sugar, and salt. And what's so interesting about that? The owner of this shop in the central square is called Jane, and she seems unusual. Jane is the youngest in the Goldrail family. She has huge ambitions. She has the most original product advertisement. She arranged a sugar tasting, but sugar is very expensive and cannot be given away just like that. As a result, the head office sent an employee to stop these tastings, and Jane almost strangled him. Stubborn and purposeful, and at the same time the youngest in a family of new rich people, and she has talent, unlike Wilhelmina. Such a suitable person was found so quickly, attracting Johann was the most effective decision. The eldest duchess warmly patted the lovely boy on the head. He was such a fine fellow. She can't invent something of her own or even steal something from her world, but Jane can make it all happen. This girl will be able to combine local technologies and something from Wilhelmina's world. We need to recruit her. Johann will be able to give Lady Jane this letter. They have something to talk about with her. Is the young widow Leighton really going to start her own business? There's no hiding anything from Johann. To begin with, she needs to make the necessary connections and gain the support of a truly competent specialist. She was never attracted to the idea of something of her own. Doing the same thing every day is much easier, but she needs to survive in a new world. The girl couldn't resist and patted the lovely boy again. He was so cute and charming. How can you resist when Johann is such a nice and sweet child? He is actually a man and a breadwinner. They won't understand him. Since the lady finished squeezing the boy, he went to work in the garden. Maybe they could go there together. Why would the eldest lady go towards the garden of the main castle of the Leightons? She needs to see Duchess Helena. The boy stood there dumbfounded. His jaw dropped. Johann had nothing to worry about. Everything would be fine. However, the topic is not yet clear. Maybe it is about the incident that took place at the reception, but be that as it may, she replaced the mistress of the estate. And how the mistress of the house, Wilhelmina, didn't even show up, saying that she had to take care of the Viscount's daughter. Melisse, it's a failure. Slander is concentrated on one person. Aurelia has no connections or reputation. It's good that she will be forgotten. The slightest gossip would jeopardize even ongoing marriage negotiations, and here is a widow who is younger than her daughter-in-law. An ideal target for condemnation and gossip, Aurelia will immediately retreat into the shadows and be safe. Here the girl's face changed. Stop. What is Michael doing here, and why is he so happy? Helena greeted her mother-in-law with her usual contemptuous look, and finally her stepmother arrived. Let Helena change her expression. They're not going to fight, are they? Yeah. Well, that's another matter. The three of them gathered here for the first time as a real family. The son itself believes in it. What kind of tea should I make for my mother? Why is she his stepmother? Michael will brew it personally. The Grand Duke personally prepares tea for the self-proclaimed hostess. Helena tries to strangle her with her gaze. A real family. Apparently, the girl was not mistaken. The young Duke really does have only flowers and unicorns on his mind. The main antagonist in fantasy novels is not a villain at all. There is a type that everyone tries to avoid. Maybe Mother wants to dine with them. The eldest lady hasn't dined yet. It would be better for him to turn around and look at Helena. Apparently, it is impossible to avoid the most unpleasant character. The Duke is apparently a naive simpleton in the plot. During their first meeting, Wilhelmina thought that Michael was just pretending to be naive and welcoming. And inside it, there is a boundless abyss of treachery and cruelty, which she will still have to face. However, this guy is made of cotton candy. What kind of a stone is there in his bosom? This guy is annoyingly optimistic and radiant, and few people like him. The poor fellow doesn't understand the hints at all, and doesn't realize how stupid the Duke looks, especially in relation to his wife, to whom he preferred the position of her mother-in-law, an extremely uncomfortable situation for the girl. The widow would like to talk. It was really high time for them to do so, "Not with you, my dear, but with the stern and vindictive lady." The young duke wanted to announce that the married couple was going to move to a separate wing. Does this sugar boy at least realize the wrath he's bringing down on poor Wilhelmina? Why move to a separate wing? There are too many curious eyes there. If necessary, it would be better if the young mother-in-law came to them herself. Is it true that the stepmother is so kind? Here he is, and as soon as Helena lets him out of the house, the duchy is under threat. The girl looked at her daughter-in-law's face in surprise. Apparently she noticed that her mother-in-law agreed with her. If the matter was not urgent, then a letter would have been sufficient, since the married couple probably had a lot of things to do. They are one family, after all, and there can be no talk of correspondence, let alone having tea together once a week. From time to time, everyone needs a warm family circle. The sun is at its best again. The crushing hospitality is activated. Helena wanted to tell her mother-in-law something about the recent reception. They needed to talk in private. Well, that means the young head of the family needs to leave two lovely ladies. Michael is extremely smart. The young man will not embarrass them. Let the family talk calmly without his presence. The mistress of the estate barely contained her angry outburst and exhaled through her teeth. It was not easy for this poor thing. So the princess sees no point in observing formalities and will immediately get down to business. She was informed about the Viscount's daughter, Melise. This was to be expected. It felt like the girl had had a similar conversation before. Nothing terrible or serious happened, just a minor incident that did not have any serious consequences. All is true, however. Because of this young lady, the elder lady did not attend the reception in honor of the border governor. The girl really couldn't even properly congratulate the hero of the occasion, so in essence, she wasn't there. The mistress of the estate looked at her young mother-in-law with a questioning look, after which she silently took out from the hem of her dress a certain letter with a family seal. "And what's this?" This letter is addressed personally to the young widow Leighton as a token of gratitude. The message was not opened. Apparently, it was a letter of thanks from the Viscount's daughter, Melise. This means that Helena did not bother to read the contents of the correspondence. Although such letters are usually checked, this is unexpected. The mother-in-law acted wisely for Irelia. This was her debut, and one mistake would have put an end to her further stay in high society. However, the fact that the mistress of the estate did not show up for the celebration is also an unpleasant stain on the reputation. The young duke intervened, defending his stepmother. "No need. Let his wife finish. She hasn't finished yet." So, in connection with recent events, Duchess von Leighton would like to ask her to take charge of the preparations for the reception. The next gala reception is due to take place very soon, and the mother-in-law is responsible for organizing it entirely. First, there was a celebration in honor of the Margrave himself, then his border knights and soldiers will be honored. Accordingly, the young widow will need to arrange a ceremonial reception in honor of the border troops. Well, Wilhelmina's absence at that reception was considered by all the guests as disrespect for the military forces of the West, so she caused trouble. And Helena is trying to give her the opportunity to fix this, which will also help stop the gossip among the nobles. In this way, the princess will whitewash the reputation of an inconvenient relative and at the same time her family, and she is good. So this is a great chance for the eldest duchess to finally step confidently into high society. She will take up preparations. Since the girl created problems for those who support her without even knowing, then this is the least she can do. The venue and budget have already been decided. The daughter-in-law will inform her mother-in-law about the dates of the celebration. In fact, Helena has already done the most basic thing. The widow only has a little left to do, and besides, she will have assistance. Well, now that the girls have settled everything, they can finally start drinking tea. Michael is simply amazing. Let the servants bring refreshments for tea, and as much as possible, honestly, where is his generator of stifling positivity installed? The daughter-in-law prepared some herbal tea that is given for colds. Let the mother-in-law drink it. Girls shouldn't bother themselves with chores. As the head of the family, he will pour the tea into the cups himself. How does this gingerbread man even manage to rule such a great and powerful duchy? The young, smiling hero handed the ladies cookies. He likes the ones with apricot jam the most. Even if Helena is a wise leader, the official head of their house is this gummy bear. With his carefree face, one becomes worried about their future because he doesn't worry about anything seriously. Usually the main character is a simpleton who represents an imbalanced character. This is a standard template. But the character who is a burden or an optimist who gets in everyone's way is structured differently. His cheerfulness did not arise without reason. Unlike his cruel father, Michael is loved by all the servants of the house, and apparently there were reasons for forming such an image. There was a knock at the door of the restroom. Whoever was there, let them come in. The butler begs for forgiveness. He does not wish to interrupt the family's solitude, but a letter has arrived which the Duke of Leighton must look at. Michael really doesn't want to leave his ladies, but he has to go. Business can't wait. Let them have fun without him. Yeah, he and Helena are going to have a slumber party, braid each other's hair, and share secrets. The young Duke left in a hurry. Helena probably wants to keep an eye on him. Well, since the girls have already finished all their tea, it's time for the young mother-in-law to return to her estate. Wilhelmina put down her cup and was about to leave. Viscountess Roland praised her mother-in-law very much. Is this really so unexpected since the girl was clumsy during her training? The mentor said that in matters of etiquette, the mother-in-law is not yet perfect, but her warm attitude overshadows everything. Apparently, the ginger tea really did have a positive effect. I should buy more of it. Here, the voice and expression of the daughter-in-law instantly changed. Well, Helena hopes that it will overshadow all the roughness of the girl. The princess just clearly expressed her contempt and mocked her mother-in-law. It is interesting what the princess wanted to achieve with such statements. She wanted to anger Wilhelmina. But for some reason the heroine is not angry. On the contrary, it amuses her. This attempt was even cute or something. What is happening? It's so funny because you can read right through this pompous girl's thoughts and her fake tolerance towards her mother-in-law. In this world, the heroine is still young, but in hers she has seen a lot of different people and can read their true thoughts. In the modern world, people have learned to accept that they may not like someone. It is normal and not fatal. She doesn't care if her daughter-in-law hates her. She even likes the princess's character. She's interesting. Well, as a mother-in-law, Wilhelmina will try not to become arrogant and become an exemplary senior lady in their house. After all, conflicts between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law destroy the general peace in the house. Helena looked at her interlocutor with a cold and piercing gaze. This is not the end yet. So it is necessary to establish contact with the merchant Jane from Goldrail before the New Year's receptions at the Leighton house. But never mind. Wilhelmina will get somewhere with small steps. And here comes that very youngest daughter of the Goldrails. Jane Goldrail, the youngest daughter of their house, is delighted to welcome the Grand Duchess of Leighton. Wilhelmina Leighton, a young widow from the Grand Duke's household, is also pleased to meet you. The weather outside had gotten really bad and it was cold, so the maid prepared hot tea for the ladies. Anna looked at her mistress with obvious concern. Everything is fine, the maid can walk. As the elder lady wishes, a squeal was heard. Anna crashed into some powerful young man in the doorway. The maid asks for forgiveness. The guest appeared so suddenly. What kind of a healthy young man is he? The widow would also have mistaken him for a wall. The stranger has very beautiful facial features, perhaps the kind you would only see on the pages of a fantasy novel. Resinous strands lie softly on marble skin, a chiseled and strong-willed chin. There was clearly an unshakable strength in this figure. Wilhelmina didn't imagine it. Their gazes seemed to intersect. Apparently the elder lady was frightened. It was Lady Jane's messenger. She apologizes. Milady should have asked the young man to wait for her outside and not go inside. Everything is fine. Jane brought a cup of hot drink, and her face was immediately enveloped in the spicy and fresh aroma of fruit tea. What a wonderful scent. Such a pleasant trail of ripeness and summer notes. It's amazing. This must be the first time Lady Goldrail has tried tea with quince added to it. It helps with colds. Ginger is too expensive a product to constantly use to appease guests, so only quince was left in the pantry. Miss Jane is grateful for such hospitality, but would like to get down to business. The Duchess wants business cooperation. The Goldrail family and their trading guild are always looking forward to new opportunities and further development. But Jane is only a small trader and will find it difficult to fit in with the great Duchy of Leighton. What a polite, veiled refusal. She just doesn't want to get involved with aristocrats and unnecessary problems. The guest misunderstood the elder Mrs. Leighton. She is not offering the girl a partnership. In both worlds, starting your own business requires talent and inner strength, but that's not her thing, so she'll be an investor. The widow will invest her new relative's money in Jane's business, and she knows what Goldrail is doing. Of course, Jane is a grain and spice trader. Even a ready-made business is too difficult to run, but passive income from investments is easy. Unlike jewelry and fabric shops, the grain shop is profitable. Its income is stable, although not astronomically high. You can earn money constantly, but you can't get rich overnight. Jane tried to break this limit with eccentric advertising. She invited chefs to demonstrate sugar art, a marketing move ahead of her time. However, the advertisement is aimed at common people with limited purchasing power, and this will not produce the desired effect. Wilhelmina learned that Jane was selling flour to commoners at the lowest price, including to Johann. The elder duchess appreciates the merchant's good nature and wants to make a small investment, and make money, of course. This isn't about charity, but rather an investment. Wilhelmina needs some ground under her feet if the Laytons kick her out. That is, the girl is favorably disposed towards Jane, but wants to emphasize that their relationship is a business. Well, in that case, Jane understood everything and will try to live up to expectations. This is an ideal offer. There is no merchant who would refuse to invest money without interference in his business. Of course, Wilhelmina does not expect to make a big profit in the early stages. The main thing is that there are no losses and the initial capital is preserved, of course. This is reasonable. But isn't damaging the initial capital a crime? There is such a law here. Are there really such strict rules regarding doing business in the world of fantasy romance? The merchant signs a receipt upon receiving money from the nobleman, guaranteeing the safety of the original capital. The merchant will not be sentenced to imprisonment for the damage, but his debt will fall even on his descendants. That is, collective responsibility occurs if the convicted person has no property, his family goes to prison, and he himself will be a convict with a brand for the rest of his life. Where is all this rosy romance, author? But if the initial capital cannot be touched, then financing will be constrained. That is why enterprises that receive large investments are called a game of all-in, where life itself is at stake. But if no one checks the books, then the reports are easy to falsify. Jane looked at the Duchess in bewilderment. And what does falsification of accounting statements mean? When a trading house falsifies financials to gain profits, and what it teaches the world of romance. The name may be different, but the concept certainly exists here. What kind of woman is sitting in front of the younger Goldrail? Where does she get such knowledge about the world of finance? Of course, Wilhelmina is a noblewoman with unusual charm, but she is still only a young aristocrat. I wouldn't want to get involved with aristocrats and get into trouble. It would be enough to simply play along with the aristocrat who wants to get rich at someone else's expense, and then distance yourself. Jane wanted to pretend that she was accepting the investment and would then return the original amount. And here there is manipulation of the financial indicators of a trading house for the sake of gaining profit. It's cunning. This is not the only option. There is also reverse falsification of accounting reports. That is, a method in which the indicators are deliberately underestimated, but then it will be impossible to obtain investments. No, the figures are slightly understated to show the illusion of growth. Now she will explain using sugar as an example. Sugar is profit. 1 layer of sugar is 1 year. They have 10 layers on both sides. And over the course of 4 years, the profit remained the same, which is much clearer. This raises the logical question of which trading house Jane herself would invest her money in. Of course, to the trading house where profit growth increased consistently, layer by layer. Because in an enterprise where the layers go 2 through 3, they will turn out to be unstable. And that's right, but what if the second house has real profit and the first house has fake profit? Someone who looks to the future has invested in a company with gradual growth and stable income. That is why they cheat, usually combining accounting distortion in both directions, both overstating and understating the indicators. Jane was always amazed at how other trade guilds showed such perfect growth, how they got investments for any project. But if this comes to light, the company will become a scam, namely everything is on the line from the series, We Will Earn and Pay. And if such trading houses also have fictitious companies, then double-entry bookkeeping can be used. Perhaps Jane will have some more tea, poor thing. She seems to have plunged into harsh reality, and what is this? These are companies that exist only on paper, pretending to be subsidiaries with assets, but they have nothing. What, the merchant's wife is like a child who suddenly grew up. This woman was raised by financial mafiosi or something. Jane is grateful for such an informative conversation and would like to meet again. Wilhelmina was so pleased, at least she was of some use, they would see each other often. In fact, it was the eldest duchess who received more information. Well, Johann did a great job. This girl will serve Wilhelmina's purposes. And now it's time to take care of the remaining matters. Now I'll have to act personally. It's become so cold outside, I don't want to go out at all. But a gala reception is not something that can be organized while sitting at home. Is that Anna there? The man said that he couldn't just give it away. It belongs to the owner. But the maid is not going far away, but is going to use it within the estate, so what difference does it make? No one will know. What's the matter? The maid is asking for forgiveness. She was just trying to get a status horse. All the horses in the outbuilding are noble steeds, which were most prized by the late Duke. The price for one is comparable to the cost of a luxury mansion, so only with the permission of the head of the house. This is fair, but apparently the widow is not perceived as a real mistress, so they require asking permission from her stepson. A mother who must ask her son's permission to leave the house. Stallions correspond to the status of nobility everywhere. Well, yes, Wilhelmina is not a full-fledged noblewoman, but whoever finds out that she took one horse, okay, they will go on foot. Whatever, the eldest lady would not be able to withstand such a long journey, and such a luxurious horse would increase her rating among the nobility. This is not possible. The widow will call a carriage from outside, the coachman will gladly call a high-class carriage for her. But this will affect the reputation exactly, as if the wife of a rich man, who does not have her own car, takes a taxi. It's okay, a person is more important than a reputation. The senior lady will only be away for a short time. But in that case, why keep horses at all, which the widow cannot use, since they are not kept for her, and she is here in someone else's house? All houses have such installations, a widow is no exception. Then the stepmother will ask her daughter-in-law to clean this stable. This is vile blackmail. The widow has no rights or wealth to compensate for damages if anything happens. How can she so irresponsibly take someone else's? The groom will soon be out of work. There is no need to push her into her place here. The servants of the widow's estate acknowledge her as mistress only because she provides them with comfort. However, the staff, who are devoted to their duty, cannot be bribed with pleasantries, so they have to act dirty. In that case, the young widow can use this marble horse. And who owns this marble horse formally? This beauty is the property of its owner. Anna is outraged. This horse is the oldest and cheapest of all, and they will then be able to compensate for the losses for the expensive racehorse due to their whims. What a steadfast man. This is just a single whim. Well, she will brag to the nobility. He does not want to lose his position, but he does not intend to respect her either. Don't these ladies understand that the groom is responsible for each horse? He will then be sentenced to hard labor, and not them. Yes, but the widow needs a horse, and the groom is so devoted to his duty that he will go where it will not be disturbed. Well, yes, this poor guy will suffer serious punishment. If Wilhelmina is guilty, then nothing will happen to her. She understands this and takes advantage of it. Well, yes, it's mean and low, but so what? In the end, there must be advantages to her position. Wilhelmina never claimed status, but she was given a chance, and she will take everything from it. Let the groom leave the stables clean after himself, since he does not want to give an expensive racehorse to a young widow. This old man doesn't even come out for the morning roll call, but discipline in the stables must be strict. Anna began to indulge her mistress. Yes, this impudent fellow will definitely have a hard time, but in fact they both acted disgustingly. Wasn't it too cruel to send him back to the castle? No way. Maybe the girl got a little carried away playing the noblewoman. The Duchess shouldn't blame herself. That's putting it mildly. There was no need to belittle her. In fact, the groom said everything fairly. It's just that this reality doesn't suit Wilhelmina. Anna began to be a little afraid of her today. She spent an hour warming her coat before handing it to the widow. She's always been a gray mass, yes, it's her fault, but with the knowledge of her world and the stagnation here, she can be on top. All the reincarnated ones reach unprecedented heights in the novels. Even if it is not outstanding, even a little cunning is enough here. Even if wealth and influence fell upon her unlawfully, at least she will be taken into account. And what is that? A red-headed athlete with a bare torso fell heavily to the ground. What a gift of fate this is. This is for Wilhelmina. A blond man stood over the loser with a victorious look, and the remaining crowd cheered for the winner. Oh, and who should I thank? Sweat was pouring down my exposed muscles, and steam was coming from my steamed skin. The athlete's mighty backs flexed with steel muscles, and the sun's rays illuminated every protrusion. Wow, what luck! And where did such a parade of beauty come from? Angels fell from the sky. Why is the lady looking at this shamelessness? A noble lady shouldn't look at such things, it's indecent. And my lady simply looked at them until they were holes in her. Okay, she's already seen everything. Anna's hands are so hard, I should bring her some moisturizer. So they did not come to forbidden territory, and these gladiators themselves do not consider this something shameful. There are no doors or windows here, and these Apollos for some reason took off their outerwear, so this is just a lucky coincidence. Well, why is the maid frozen there and not even raising her eyes? There really is something to look at here. Anna is about to lose consciousness. Why be so nervous? Let her enjoy the view. Not all knights are brutes. I wonder if during a duel only equipment is important, or if skill can overshadow it. How on time the girl wandered in here. It would be necessary to clarify their schedule. Then a familiar, strong-willed voice was heard behind her. And what is the young widow Leighton doing here? The governor of the border is glad to welcome her and apologizes to the lady for this spectacle. They saw each other not long ago, so these athletes are the knights of the Margrave. And where do they draw such people? Fools don't see that they have guests. Come on, everyone, get dressed quickly. The Duchess clicked her tongue in disappointment. Not so clearly, madam, the maid squeaked. The master heard. The governor froze in shock. It was all Anna. She couldn't get enough of it. The training ended, and after it was over, the border guards greedily pounced on the hot food and drinks. So the House of the Grand Duke of Leighton wants to organize a celebration, and the widow wants to know what it should be like. If there are any wishes, she will take them into account to the maximum extent. It would be great if there was good food and wine. As for balls or theatrical performances, it will be difficult for knights. For them, such receptions will become incomprehensible. They've sorted that out, but aren't there any special dishes that the Margrave would like to try? These guys would rather have barbecue than a gourmet meal or some steak, and the governor himself drinks very rarely. Well, the elder lady thought that she would quickly sort everything out here. The young widow should not be afraid. The border governor knows the perfect person to solve the problem. However, his manner of expressing opinions and thoughts is very straightforward. In a couple of minutes, the Margrave will call him. What a wonderful gentleman. He doesn't entrust his servants with anything to do, although he has plenty of them. Yes, this man is of military character and true courage. He prefers to do everything himself. The excited knights continued to make noise around the two ladies. They would like to leave here as soon as possible, but the widow likes it here. The doors slammed. A beauty with a military bearing appeared in front of the girls, and they said that the Duchess was looking for help. Purple eyes, skin like purest marble, incredibly precise and refined facial features. Come on, is this knight really a girl? And did Anna say something else to Wilhelmina about decency? Hush. The guardian is pleased to welcome the elder Lady Leighton. He is indeed a knight, but not a girl. His name is Nada Sonnen. The knight apologizes for being here first, but the commander said it was urgent. How is this man? He is so handsome. It is impossible. The young lady apologizes for her maid. It's Sir Nat's fault. He didn't have time to get himself together after the mission. But that can't be. This guy is more beautiful than any girl. Anna will finally calm down. That's it. The maid was kicked by the horse today. Let the knight not pay attention and sit down. Well, actually the maid is right in some ways. The knight doesn't really have a gender. What? The girl was not prepared for such a turn of events at all. The author never ceases to amaze. And what exactly is meant, just for reference? Nada Sonnen is a fairy, it is a disease, it is contagious. No. It seems that Wilhelmina remembers something from folklore, winged inhabitants of the forests or something. This people is born in nature. It is a rare race, which is difficult to meet among people. Fairies can be born from flaming volcanoes or centuries-old oak trees, and the essence of their existence is not connected to the body. That is why they do not need gender. In the scientific community, the views on them are divided, considering them a separate race. Or to classify the heirs of nature as spirits, in the girl's opinion, they are very different from people. The Margrave said that Nada could make unvarnished suggestions for organizing the holiday. A young widow has been tasked with organizing a reception in honor of the border knights and is in dire need of good advice. So it's necessary to speak out without embellishment. Well, yes, apparently Nat's directness is highly valued here. Not everyone can afford to speak out sincerely and without reserve. This is a luxury in both worlds. The elder lady wants the celebration to be a success, so she will reward the fairies for their help. The celebration will be much more interesting if there are events and not just delicious food or a theatrical performance. The girl doesn't even know what events are about. Fairy means a flash mob or something, whatever, some kind of competitions in which knights and soldiers can participate. That is, such guys need not to watch, but to do in order to have fun, and this is clearly not ballroom dancing. There will definitely be dancers among the knights, but there certainly won't be any among the soldiers. In this case, you can arrange something like a fight without rules with a betting pool, that is, just a martial arts tournament. They will be delighted to demonstrate their strength in front of the audience. Any of them will want to show everything they are capable of to enthusiastic applause. But if you make the tournament as usual, it won't be exciting because all the spectators should be interested. After all, the tournament will be organized by the ducal house. It should be bright and very impressive. However, the fairy himself will not be able to take part in the competition, and that is why. It's all because of the knight's face. It's unlikely that there will be anyone who would want to seriously fight with Nada. There's no arguing with that. Everyone will say that this masterpiece used its beauty to distract attention. By the way, if the tournament is among people they know, some difficulties may arise. It will be difficult to bring down the boss or someone you are attached to. Everything must be anonymous in order to show all your strength. Nat's face can be hidden. Everyone will wear beautiful outfits and bright masks. It will be very spectacular, like on a TV show. That's right, there was such an entertainment show where they also gave strange nicknames. This is perfect. Here is the first stolen material from the real world that will serve her interests. So all participants will be in masquerade costumes and will perform under fictitious names. This way, participants will be able to show only their strength, thereby ensuring a fair and impartial result. The fairy's cheeks immediately turned red, and he began to nod his head contentedly. Yes, yes, yes. Let milady hold such a tournament, please. The fairy also wants to prove her strength. Oh, this angel holds Wilhelmina's hands. Let her ask for whatever she wants. A house, a car, a business, everything is his. Anna nudged her mistress with her elbow. The eldest duchess had drool running down her chin, and what joy was splashing here. What were the guests talking about? Since their nada was so excited, the governor was not at all on time. It was the first time he saw a fairy like this. How conveniently the Margrave came in, and most importantly, on time, without disturbing anyone. The widow put on her usual smile. So they came up with an extraordinary plan thanks to this handsome knight. It all sounds interesting. The masks and stage costumes will be uncomfortable, but this is more of an entertainment event. And not a wild spectacle like on the parade ground or for the honor of the country, but it would be better to prepare a first aid kit. Nada will gather people and organize a working group. We also need to provide training weapons. For the sake of general safety, it would be good to allocate a couple of soldiers after all. They are professional warriors, and you never know if they might get carried away. To be honest, the young widow did not expect that Knight Nada would be so happy about this event. As soon as the governor heard about the masked festival, he immediately thought of Nada. It suits him perfectly. The Duchess is so insightful. Yeah, it's actually thanks to the Korean variety show writers. Until now, the fairy had difficulty cooperating with others due to his enslaving appearance. Thanks to this event, the fairies will be able to feel freer. Was that really a serious problem? The army is a strict and disciplined structure. For those who are different, service will be difficult. Trying to change such people to a common standard will weaken the team, and the term of service comes to an end and the knights retire. An ordinary knight takes a lifelong oath to his master, but with Nada it is different. Usually the title of knight is bestowed by the master himself. Fairy received the title for military merit, and after leaving the army he will become a free knight. And the title of knight has power only if there is a master. Freedom is just a word. In reality, Natasha will become a wanderer. So the fairy went in search of a new master, since his term in the army was ending. What are his combat achievements? They are outstanding. In one-on-one fights, Nada is one of the strongest. And the governor's border army itself is the strongest and most powerful in the Western lands. Being among the best at the top and not getting the recognition you deserve is very painful. So they're organizing an event for knights and soldiers next week. The Margrave is hosting the ladies. The elder lady thanks the governor for his care and help. The tournament should be grand. By the way, the maid can call the carriage for them again. It will be done. I mean, how is it that a maid would call a carriage from the street? Why doesn't the eldest duchess have a family carriage? It just so happened that all the carriages in the duchy were busy, so Anna called a carriage from outside. There are more than several dozen carriages in the Grand Duchy. How could they all be occupied at once? Well, here we go again. A terrible beast has burst out of the uncle again. And why is he yelling at them? They have nothing to do with it. These are all rules. The great warrior came to his senses and exhaled. There was no need to worry. He would take care of the carriage himself. Let the boys prepare a carriage for the Duchess of Leighton. It will be done immediately. Wow, this is exactly what an expensive racing car would look like in a fantasy world. A full 6 horsepower. The Grand Duke of Leighton has less. All the horses seem to be cast from black velvet and steel, and the carriage itself is of a noble dark shade, which is ideal for the military. But on the other hand, it feels like she is going to war or to conquer a neighboring country. And here there is a ladies' option. There is a comfort category. There is no need to refuse. Ladies will be comfortable. Well, okay. The girls had no choice anyway. The Margrave helped the Duchess get into the carriage. Besides, the governor of the border is also getting ready to go, so he will keep the lady company. How strange that a great warrior communicates with a young widow in a friendly manner. If it weren't for the girl's current status, she wouldn't even be able to talk to the governor. Her ladyship remembers what they talked about last time in the garden. Perhaps during her academic years, the young duchess had an affair with a certain man. Yes, she remembers. This is bad. In that case, could the elder lady forget about that conversation? What's wrong with this man? These are the consequences of long military service. He should have taken a vacation. The Margrave sincerely asks Duchess Leighton to forget his words. It will be better for everyone. It doesn't sound mysterious at all, but it doesn't want to get to the bottom of the truth and find out what's going on here. Anna missed something. If we are talking about the garden at the Leighton estate, then the conversation took place after that reception. That's all right. The eldest lady cannot be left alone for a minute, and what happened between her and the governor, she herself does not know. Wilhelmina understood absolutely nothing then and now. Oh no, that means there was something after all. Anna actually listens to her mistress. Nothing happened. Oh no, everything is so bad. What did the maid think up for herself? The Margrave's military carriage began to approach the ducal estate, and who was that standing there? The girl's face immediately became serious and tense. That thin girl in the dress was definitely Helena. The mistress of the estate came out to some man, and they were talking about something. Who is the princess talking to? Wilhelmina's view is blocked by a tree. Not that one. It's Mr. Jackson. Who is Mr. Jackson? Who? He is a groom who honestly did his job, and they drove him out of the stable. Because he did not want to fulfill the whims of the pseudo-mistress and bear responsibility instead of her. Of course, a widow should have her own carriage, but she had no right to demand the most expensive one, and even more so to threaten a hard worker. The mistress of the estate immediately examined the military carriage in which her mother-in-law had arrived. She and the governor discussed preparations for a festival in honor of the knights and soldiers of the border, but the lady did not have a carriage. Helena is grateful for the concern. For a knight, this is a matter of course. One cannot allow a lady to travel alone. And what was happening there now? She didn't imagine it. The Margrave really scolded Helena with his gaze. And why is the great warrior angry instead of Wilhelmina herself? He doesn't know the situation. In fact, it's her fault. This girl behaved like an ungrateful pig, and the Margrave thinks that she is being oppressed by her family. Well, it seems that today the mother-in-law has secured a verdict from her daughter-in-law. It is not difficult to guess that the position of the young widow from nowhere is very shaky in the house. And in general, in essence, no one anywhere particularly needs her, so why is the border governor suddenly protecting her? The Margrave is forced to take his leave of Madame until next time. Well, great. The Margrave charged the crazy daughter-in-law and left this bomb alone with her mother-in-law. Let the uncle not abandon the girl here. Helena is about to explode. But it's still very strange, and there's clearly something behind this gesture, because it's definitely not in the Margrave's interests to be at odds with the Leightons. Is it really not a problem for a great warrior to have a conflict with the most influential duchies, no matter how strong and powerful he is? Well, the widow really wanted to be considered the mistress here, even if this is not so, but at least the servants should respect her. Since she was given such a chance to become at least someone, in fact the poor guy did everything right, but she twisted everything so that he had to be scolded. However, Helena had gone too far. The groom looked as if he was about to be led to the scaffold. Before the New Year's reception, a new carriage and a new horse will be delivered to the stables for the widow. Stop, that is, the daughter-in-law still won't give her those expensive horses from the main stable in the outbuilding. These horses belong to his lordship and are worth a fortune. The widow will not be financially responsible for them. She lives off the Leighton couple's fortune, and they will choose a horse that suits her status. Helena will not allow her to appropriate someone else's rights to her real status, and not the one she wanted to attach to herself. And he will quickly lower it to the ground, which means that the groom did not perform his duties in good faith, and it was not the widow who slandered him. Only the heads of noble families or prominent members of society could have racehorses of this breed, so the groom was wrong. Well, you can't remove low quality from a person. This kind of low quality proves it. What punishment would be considered appropriate in the opinion of the one who accused him? Anna is about to lose consciousness. Maybe it's for the best. Her mistress has done some bad things, and it's dangerous to joke around with Helena. Well, the groom is indeed to blame. He was rude, that is, he did not flatter and call the guest the mistress of this house. The groom was really only guilty of not having taken care of a new carriage for the widow. The princess only confirmed that she is a nobody here, and that she will have to be publicly humiliated for slander. The villainous will punish an innocent servant, but she just wanted to scare him and throw dust in the eyes of these arrogant people. If she just lets go of the situation now, she will lose her authority, although she has no influence here anyway. And is it worth it to enter into a fight because of a momentary weakness? Helena is too strong an opponent? I have a question for my daughter-in-law. Although no, Wilhelmina is only a shadow here anyway. So everyone admits that Helena acted wisely and fairly, and the widow is a pathetic and envious liar. That was the case in that situation, but it will affect the future. She will never be considered an authority. Before deciding who owns the groom, they should figure out that the princess already has everything, and the widow needs status, even if it's in this way. It's simple. If the groom is listed among the servants of the widow's house, then it is not her fault that she did not keep an eye on the staff. And if it is the staff from the main castle, then the owner is to blame. Well, yes, this is low again, but Helena already has power and authority. If the groom serves the widow, then her horse too. If the main house, then vice versa. Helena prefers the second option, but then the blame will pass to her. She just lied again, and even set up her daughter-in-law. If it was not her fault, then she would pretend to be merciful to the groom. In order to gain the favor of the staff, the mother-in-law took a dangerous path and, because of her greed, declared war on her daughter-in-law. What choice will this Miss Perfection make? She is a genius, that's what they say about her, so how will she get out of it? To be honest, the widow expected to run into a serious quarrel with her daughter-in-law. Yes, in this house, everyone is afraid of the younger lady, but at the same time they respect her immensely, and this infuriates Wilhelmina. She also wants such recognition. Then she needs to endure everything. Like Helena, she achieved everything with her strength of spirit and intelligence. The mistress of the estate is, of course, formidable, but always fair. But enough of praising her. So what if the widow did something nasty once? It happens to everyone, but the situation was easily resolved. This was the responsibility of the mistress of the house. The groom would only receive a formal punishment. It was so infuriating that Helena wouldn't let her near the Leightons' rights, and she still hadn't lost an ounce of her authority. Of course, the widow wanted to get what Helena had in a dirty way, but she can also be understood, right? Well, Anna actually regrets that they did that. Okay, the widow was wrong. The other grooms punished Jackson. Thinking that he had really shown impudence towards the eldest lady, it didn't work out very well. Then a familiar voice was heard. It was the beautiful fairy. How is Lady Wilhelmina? Well, I'll be damned. The knight brought a bunch of things with him, apparently. All this is needed to organize the holiday. Unfortunately, the elder lady was not ready for the meeting and will not be able to offer tea in the garden. It would be better to place the boxes and barrels of wine in the shade, and coolness later the servants will move them to the storeroom. Something tells the girl that the governor sent the fairies here today for a reason. The handsome knight, although he tries to hide his excitement, still his true motives are obvious. So what does Sir Nat need to do? He is waiting for orders from the organizer of the celebration. To begin with, they should look at the prepared clothes. Nada would be happy to do so. Wilhelmina showed the knights where to place the decorations and led the fairies into the estate. Madame had assistants to sew the masquerade costumes, so they were on time. The doors opened and small children were sitting sewing outfits for the border knights and soldiers. The boy made a pirate costume. The girl made a bird. My lady uses children as a labor force. Well, they live here. And they periodically help their mistress. They only enjoy making masquerade costumes. The children will spend a week in warmth and receive pay for their work equal to what they could earn in a week in the fields. So this is some kind of charity event. And will the children be able to cope with the work well enough? Quality is not important. Even if the participants look ridiculous, there will be some charm in this. Not everyone will share such an excuse. It will affect the reputation. If you label it as being made by kids, the result won't immediately be charming and cute. Only for the ladies who see the meaning of their lives only in children. The rest will not understand this. That's why they will call it charity. No one will condemn such an act, and the reputation will be positive. The widow must understand that such techniques fully reflect the house, and the work on the knee will be appreciated accordingly. And the girl, in essence, corrects her mistake from the previous one. With this technique, she will betray not only her house, but also the knights. Okay, the widow will arrange for the final finishing to be done by a tailor. Nat's eyes lit up when he saw all these costumes. He could help the kids prepare them. Only when she is around children does she feel respected, important, and needed, which is why she went to work as a teacher. In other areas, she is just an ordinary gray mass in the stream. The sister will also sew. The boy called the widow sister. The boy sewed a helmet. He is now a knight with a potato helmet. He loves potatoes so much. They are so tasty. But in that case, the boy will be a very popular knight, and everyone will want to eat him. The child stuck his jaw out in shock. He was in danger because everyone loves potatoes. But the lady won't let anyone eat it, right? And the fairy doesn't happen to know how to sew? It's his first time. In that case, let the knight collect the pieces of fabric and connect them as best he can, and the Duchess will finish the job later. And how exactly these pieces need to be connected does not matter, so let Sir Nata do as he can. That mannequin over there has such a bright suit, so you can put the fabrics together any way you like. It will still be beautiful after all. There is a color palette. The shades must match to look nice. And not in a rustic way. We are talking about an important reception. We will have to try to improve everything here. First, you need to imagine the final image in your head, and then try to transfer it onto the fabric. An admiring crowd of children gathered around the forest dweller. Who is this beautiful girl? She is more beautiful than the lady. In front of the guys is not just an incredibly beautiful girl or guy, but an outstanding knight from the border troops, and one of the participants in the festive tournament who will fight in a costume made by children. It can't be. There really is a real knight in front of the guys. They are all so cool. Just look at these connoisseurs of beauty. They never complimented her, and Natasha is falling asleep. And all noble knights know how to ride horses. How many beautiful princesses has Sir already saved? Nata can ride a horse, but he can't save princesses, and the knight has seen as many dragons as he has, but he does it more slowly and one at a time. And all the knights were of such angelic beauty, and the boy's father said that the Margrave's troops were terrible people. They are just kids, but why does it feel like the fairies need a shield and spear help? The eldest lady takes care of the children. It is very noble of her, but someone has to. In fact, she is not that good. It's just that for children she is an absolute authority, but for others she is a nobody. The fairy has pure thoughts and intentions, so she judges by herself, but caring for children is truly pleasant for her. The elder lady simply gave each child a little money and made them work, but at least in warmth and under a roof. Well, the girl didn't earn this money herself. She is fully supported by the Leighton couple, so there is no point in praising Wilhelmina here. She worries about the children, but she also gets her own benefits from this. In fact, the widow has a kind heart. The fairy sees this perfectly, and this is always beautiful in a person. Be careful with such a smile. Such a beautiful man is capable of enslaving a village with it. If you go down these stairs, they and the fairies will find a dining room. They should have a good meal. Nata doesn't mind. They worked hard and are hungry. And what's that noise down there? It seems like it's the knights. Why did Commander Derek volunteer together with Sir Nata? The young men had a tense argument. That powerful and confident man in his position is apparently Commander Derek. And why exactly are all the knights making so much noise? The governor was right when he said that it's not easy among the fairy soldiers. Doesn't the commander know that Sir Nata despises them, the squires? Having been a squire for 5 years, he is forced to watch as Nata, thanks to her appearance, became a knight in 3 years. These are all the guys' complexes, and Natasha doesn't even show up for training and sparring, having become a knight. The commander has no idea what it means to give in to someone whose skills are questionable. The fairy was just training at dawn. These envious vultures, Nata trained in solitude so as not to disturb anyone. Well, Nat's skills are questionable. Because of his appearance, the fairies were sent to the ducal house. Everyone has their own strengths. The work is done by knights, and the fairies accompany the widow. A pitiful sight. They belittle Nat, exalting themselves. No one even asked the fairies for an escort with Nat's appearance. They would also live in luxury. The dinners at the Duke's house are delicious, so they should take their minds off unpleasant thoughts and have a glass of beer for everyone. That's the only difference between the truly strong and those who pretend to be strong, and their gang is just a refuge for the insecure. Fairy is beautiful in both body and soul, and no envious caustic words can affect this. Sir Nat is in great pain now, but he has perfect control of himself and maintains a grateful composure. This angel will show everyone yet. They only have a chance to slander until the first sparring with him. Afterwards, these pathetic cretins will have no reason to justify their worthlessness. Sir Nata must win the festive tournament. Let him prove his invincible strength. In this competition, no one will know their opponent by sight, so afterward, no one will dare to slander anymore. Fairy clenched his fists, but people just find it convenient to cover up their failures, and would victory change his situation? Of course, it will not be easy. Any achievement requires time and evidence. However, after an unshakable triumph in front of a crowd of spectators, no one will be able to dispute his result. And all the efforts that the fairies have put in will never let him down. Wilhelmina believes in Sir Nat. So let the outstanding warrior proudly raise his head and sword. It's time to show his genuine skill. Considering how much the fairy trained, he will be the main hero of the tournament. Knights speak truth with the sword. A radiant smile appeared on the face of the most beautiful knight. This was exactly what he needed to hear. Preparations for the festive reception in honor of the border troops were almost complete. The Margrave remembers the order of the ceremony. Of course, everything will go smoothly. The elder lady has nothing to worry about. After the congratulatory speech, there will be a ceremonial presentation of orders, followed by a tournament in masquerade costumes. Well, since they remembered everything, it's time for them to look accordingly. The governor needs to wear this. The great warrior immediately froze, but this was a ceremonial military uniform. Would he really have to wear it again? Well, of course, the appearance will set the right atmosphere for the holiday. The widow will also wear a festive costume. What is this? A cat. The Margrave will be recognized in any case, but the eldest duchess would prefer to hide her face after all. She needs to report. Since this is a martial arts tournament, without good commentary, the audience will not be interested. Wow, the Margrave looks so good in his dress uniform, but he is still more used to simple and comfortable clothes. Oh, these military men, and what does Her Grace think about Sir Nat? What exactly interests the governor? The lady understands everything anyway. Mr. Margrave was indeed right. The position of fairies in the army is very difficult. One cannot stand out here. This person has a very strong aura, and his gaze penetrates into the very depths of your thoughts, giving you goosebumps. As expected of a great warrior and commander, insight, firmness, and honor. To be honest, Nada is a bit weak. Yes, he is in a difficult position, and the more the Margrave singles him out, the worse it is for him. If the knight had realized that his commander was on his side, he would have been able to act more decisively. The reason Nat lost was because he naively believed that his swordsmanship would solve everything and was overly lenient. However, if the fairy had been wiser, he would have been able to use his social status to gain allies and solve the problem faster. Doesn't the eldest duchess understand that taking advantage of one's position is beneath the dignity of a knight, and Nata is a true knight? To bully one person in a crowd is behavior that is worthy of knights. How can one demand that the victim of bullying observe the code of honor? After all, none of these envious aggressors follow the call of honor and dignity, unlike the fairies. There are things in the world that cannot be solved by justice alone, and Sir Nat has a lot of resources he is not using. Influential connections, the same angelic appearance. If he were more cunning, he wouldn't have to seek outside help. And what did the Duchess advise Sir Nat himself? Did the girl and knight really say so? Of course not. The main character stuck a lavender flower into the governor's festive jacket. How lovely. Nada is too charming and bright, so the girl can't say anything harsh to him. Well, yes, next to this angel she becomes melted butter. That's why she chose the most troublesome path. That's all true, and the young widow was always very angry when people did not receive a reward for their efforts and merits. Well, with each dialogue, the governor becomes more and more aware of what the elder lady is like. This is a local turn of phrase, that is, well, last time Sir Nada said the same thing to the girl, word for word. The great warrior laughed loudly. What did Wilhelmina say? Even the Margrave had a mighty laugh. Now the walls will collapse. The conversation between the two was overheard by a beautiful forest dweller, and the fairy's face still had a warm and grateful smile. Well, all this time Natasha is really only in agreement with her conscience and dignity. The young widow said she didn't like it when people didn't get recognition for their achievements. This really doesn't seem fair or decent, so it's time to fix it. And the knight will definitely win today's tournament, and here comes Sir Nata. The slippery commander forced a smile. There will be too many participants in today's tournament, so it will be very difficult to win. What is he saying? It's clear why the fairies hate the squires they didn't fight side by side with him. Nada shouldn't stress too much. It's just a tournament. Even if Nada wins, who cares? But the commander and the other knights know very well that Nada is the strongest of all, and they deliberately slandered him because of their own insignificance. The fairy will no longer stand on ceremony with anyone. This is a new excuse for an envious mediocrity before defeat. And what's wrong with Nat? The fight is not at full strength. Since it's just a tournament, it sounds like a lie, justifying his defeat. So that, after a crushing and obvious defeat, this slug would say that he simply didn't fight at full strength. Hey, Derek was just trying to cheer up Sir Nat. No, he was trying to convince him to lose to cover up his own worthlessness. So that none of the soldiers and knights would see what Natasha was truly capable of, and what the lying and envious Derek was not capable of. So until we meet in the ring, the commander remembers the maxi rule during a defeat. The loser takes it off. Probably such a triumphant disgrace will become a lesson for the envious person and chatterbox. Well, the fairy wished him luck. So it's time for him to prepare for the tournament. Nada hopes that the imaginary minutes of glory were worth it. What the hell was that? Natasha really is the strongest among the best, but where did he get such a devastating aura from? Was this knight always so strong and just never showed his full unbridled potential? When the elder Duchess gave Nat this box, he didn't understand what it was for, but now he understands everything. Milady Layton said that if Sir Nata was confident in himself, he should open her gift, and now he is more confident than ever. If the beautiful fairy wants to win, then let him do it in the spirit of the tournament. He already has absolutely everything to win. So the time for the opening of the festive tournament came. The line of knights and soldiers greeted its organizer. "Welcome to the Layton House Martial Arts Tournament, Great Warriors." The crowd roared in delight. The girl checked the microphone. Since she could be heard, she would like to introduce herself. Today she is their host, a cat, a rabbit. Well, yes, both the mask and the ears looked very cute. She couldn't choose, so right now the long-awaited tournament will begin. The crowd of knights and soldiers roared wildly, all eagerly awaiting the opportunity to show themselves. And before they begin the duel in masquerade costumes, they will all greet Margrave Titan Eisenon. It was the governor of the border region who provided enormous assistance in organizing today's celebration. Today should be a great celebration. Helena won't be able to not celebrate it. Everyone will be talking about the tournament. The Margrave immediately blushed. He was clearly not used to praise, but his warriors showered him with applause. Maybe the girl shouldn't have gone to work as a teacher. She could have easily hosted weddings or other events. How cute. The great warrior is so embarrassed that he freezes and pretends to be a lampshade, waiting for it to end. The hall finally fell silent, and the great warrior of the Western lands saluted the eldest Duchess, for he would reveal her identity. The tournament will be held on a knockout system, with the winner of each match advancing to the next round. Special prizes will be waiting for each winner and the viewer who guesses the largest number of participants under the mask. And the main winner of today's tournament will receive a special sword created by the blacksmiths of the Layton House. The spectator who guesses the most participants will receive snow-white stems, which are given only to the greatest racehorses. The sword came to her from Helena, and the stirrups came from the horse of the late Duke, who was taken away. No one would notice. Nothing heats up the interest of spectators and participants like receiving an award. Everything worked. The main character raised her index finger up, and so the first stage of the combat tournament is declared open. Sir Slippery Slug and Sir Fragrant Pig's Feet are invited to the arena for everyone's attention. Perhaps we shouldn't have given the children the opportunity to come up with names, but it's too late to regret it now, so smile and wave. The audience asks Sir Blue Bear and Purple Panther to generously enter the ring. Oh no, the bear loses his balance and rolls on the ground. Everyone already understood that Sir Billy's is the one with the clubfoot. Let him come down. With such a physique, he won't be able to hide. It must be admitted that the plush sir is in excellent physical shape, but the clubfoot's movements are still awkward. And after today's tournament, Sir Blue Bear will have some additional training, a coach in Africa. The crowd of young military men immediately burst into deafening laughter, congratulating the plush sir. The Margrave dropped the microphone into the hands of a cat rabbit, but he needs to perform in a rap battle, as he so abruptly threw the microphone away after his speech. All the viewers loved the governor's commentary, and with magical sound enhancement, it would have been even better. Sir Dolphin crushes Sir Eggs with one blow of his scaly foot. What a sight. And now they have come to the last fight of this round, after which there will be 8 finalists who will get to the quarterfinals. And now let the audience welcome the fighters of the final duel, Sir Duck of the Marshlands. The bird tries to show off its muscles, but they are not visible under the duck down, and here is that long-awaited moment. And the last participant of today's tournament is Sir Raspberry Pie, the sweetest dessert. This costume suits him perfectly. These braided, golden-crusted cakes perfectly highlight his athletic build, well, sweetness. To be honest, the girl was hoping for a more comfortable costume, but apparently children see fairies as the most adorable dessert. Sir Nat must have a hard time without any hint of ventilation, but he chose this suit anyway, and for good reason. Because he was touched by Wilhelmina's little ones, and with warmth in his heart, he put on what they made especially for him. But the girl really tried to dissuade the knight. It was too late now. Nat's face was too serious. This suit and serious look, well, it's hilarious. Who is this? Maybe it's Sir Helton, but hasn't he entered the ring yet? No one even thinks about Sir Nat. Everyone is sure that he flew out long ago or would not have chosen a suit with restrictions. After all, such clothes will greatly interfere and affect the chance of victory. Let the beautiful warrior show all his power and conquer them all. Come on, sweet bun, go ahead. What kind of rattle is this? What kind of nunchucks are these from a toy children's set of dishes? All the spectators and the Margrave himself stared in amazement at the pie he really would fight with a child's toy. The feathered one quacked questioningly and stared at his opponent. Dessert would really go with a toy against a sword. The kids apparently really didn't want their favorite warrior to get hurt, but how could you fight with such a thing? And the pie is clearly overconfident since he entered the ring against a duck with a sword. What will he do with a child's craft? Here the fairy's eyes flashed like steel, and Nada, with one sharp and precise movement, covered the distance between him and his opponent. The bird didn't even have time to quack. It's actually a person. Everyone just saw it. What the children's nunchakus were already flashing near the beak of the yellow opponent, and the crowd of spectators froze in silent shock. So the first rule of how to make a pie is that you can't get distracted when you have the ingredients in front of you. The second rule is that even if the culinary masterpiece is small, you must always give it your all. The main character immediately blushed. Her beautiful fairy, she is so proud of this pie. He understood everything correctly. It's time for fairy baking. Everyone can sign up for culinary courses from a dough specialist. The crowd of knights listened enthusiastically to every movement. Who is hiding there? His movements are incredible. Who is it under the mask? It's funny, only the soldiers howl enthusiastically and watch Nat with great and sincere pleasure. But the experienced knights tensed up nervously and shrank. They immediately understood that this phenomenal blow was not an accident, but talent. And now is the time to add speed to the fight. Will the feathered fighter be able to resist the provocation of the bakery product? All observers are in for an incredible spectacle, as they have already realized, and the unique spectacle is about to begin right now. And the winner of this fight is the incredible raspberry dessert, which continues its winning streak. The beautiful fairy bowed to the crowd with restraint. How could one win the recognition of the audience during a combat duel? All the knights knew how strong Nada was before, but one victory won't break stereotypes for that. You need a bright show like now. An exciting fight, the respect of the winner for the defeated opponent, the delight of Nat's fantastic skill. And then the question begins to arise in the hearts of the soldiers, who is this incredible and noble warrior? They will wait impatiently for his next fight, and afterward they will catch themselves thinking that they are sincerely rooting for the unknown fighter in the mask. The audience rejoiced and praised the raspberry pie, and so step by step Nada will conquer this world, and Wilhelmina will be by her side. In just 3 fights, the fairy turned the arena into a real show that was impossible to tear yourself away from. Nada made everyone freeze and eagerly listen to his every flawless movement. Sir Chicken Thigh loses his sword, it was a mistake. Pie is also fighting in such a duel for the first time. The opponent is also not used to it. Why not raise his sword and continue this impeccable knightly manner of fighting? Nada had an excellent command of the pace of the battle and set it, and his honor and nobility finished him off. The pompous knights, who were nowhere near Nat's talent, deliberately suppressed their delight and recognition. Otherwise, they will have to admit their insignificance and envy. The raspberry dessert invites the chicken leg to fight again. Since the opponent had not yet had time to demonstrate all of his talent, even the knights could not hold back. Confidence in their own strength and dignity conquered them too. The military always reckons with unshakable force. Then an unshakable authority is formed, but for an ideal show, one more detail is still necessary. A sign that both fighters gave it their all, because the role of the loser is no less important than the winner. Especially in Nat's case, here it is, the fatal and turning point. Since this bastard came out only now, he was lucky in the draw. The long-awaited final battle between Sir Blackhorse and Sir Raspberry Pie begins. Now the true position of each of them in the troops will be established, honestly and naturally. No lies or ignorance of others will save this vile, envious person. True power will decide everything. The main character was looking forward to this moment when this beautiful butterfly could finally spread its strong wings. Wait a minute. Since this is the last fight, I have a suggestion. Why don't the participants take off their masks? What a nasty coward. The identity of this damn horse is already obvious to everyone, so he will blame his obvious loss on Nat's beauty. Thus covering up many years of lies and mediocrity, the horse asks the pie to fight openly and without masks. And how did such a piece of dirt even get into the knights? He's someone's relative. This must not be allowed under any circumstances. Most of the knights have not yet recognized Nat as one of their own. And the pathetic coward took advantage of this to avoid exposure. What a rotten freak. Raspberry Pie can't fulfill a request. This costume was made by one little girl. Her name is Tarina. She lives in the southern lands in the house of the Bake family. Her dream was to try the pie. Her life is hard. At home, there were always only slices of stale bread on the table, and for the sake of her dream, this suit was created. The knight cannot take it off. Everyone has heard that the participants' costumes were sewn by children from the slums after all. This is a charity event. Nada promised that little lady victory because Raspberry Pi is the most powerful weapon in the world, and he is good. The bastard bared his teeth here he couldn't lose in front of everyone to the one he had defiled and ridiculed. Then his baseness and envy would become obvious. And Pirojak always hit so accurately with words. Natasha was always silent. It was all the jitters from the tournament. Well, the beautiful fairy got out of the situation perfectly. The girl will not allow the slippery worm to get caught on anything else. And now, while the rival's fighting spirit has not died down, let the final duel between everyone's favorite and the other one begin. As expected, in the very first second, Nada delivered a series of precise and victorious blows to the black horse. Derek hoped for his cunning until the very end, but it didn't work. He won't have the opportunity to blame his defeat on something. None of the best knights of the Margrave will be able to stand up to this machine for long. We need to think of something urgently. He might lose consciousness. Wow, Sir Nada put not only his incredible strength into the final fight, but also his feelings. In all his previous fights, Pirojak respected his opponents, but not now. His every move is full of determination. Derek will never allow Natasha to disgrace him and show everyone that he is truly an unrivaled warrior. Something changed abruptly in the eyes of the rotten opponent. He suddenly gained speed. What is happening? Why did the black horse suddenly start moving much faster? How is this even possible? After all, up until this second this scumbag was confidently losing, he certainly doesn't look that talented. This rotten bastard started using magic. He knows very well that he is not Sir Nat's equal and does not want to reveal it. That is, like magic, Derek's sword was clearly enchanted, so the power to move much faster. According to the rules of the fight, such baseness is unacceptable, but this coward does it so imperceptibly that the audience has a hard time catching the bastard cheating. Well, for him, he's a disgusting character. But they see this with the governor, and this is a violation of the rules, but it is not official, rather unofficial. Nada could also use magic, but the fairy has too much mana. It will be much more difficult to bind her. And if Nada starts using magic in response, it will rather make him look like a dishonest fighter and a coward than even the odds. Losses are only counted when you leave the arena or give up. Even in this world, there are loopholes in competitions. Will the beautiful fairy be able to defeat the power of magic? He has fought so many battles. He is probably tired. What a slimy freak. If Wilhelmina hadn't gotten into trouble for this, she would have taken the sword herself and destroyed this worm. There is no place for such scum in the best troops of the Western lands. It is a disgrace for any knight. And no one seems to think that the black horse uses magic to move faster, which means the soldier wasn't the only one who noticed it. But why use magic? This is Sir Derek. Is he really so dishonest and pathetic? And what about all his bravado? The other warriors began to notice the low reception of this coward, but the scoundrel still continues to use it. What a cowardly brat, afraid to confront Sir Nat without magic, even under the threat of general contempt. For this envious coward, it is much more important not to lose to the fairies than to maintain the remainder of his position in front of his comrades in arms. The forces are unequal. Even such an incredibly strong warrior cannot compete with magic. And this means that Nada, who deserves today's victory more than anyone else, will lose to this trash. And the girl can't do anything about it, because there's nothing written in the rules. After all, no one could have imagined that a knight could be so cowardly and vile. There was a crunching sound. Nat's childish weapon broke, and he was also wearing the most uncomfortable anti-magic suit. How is that possible? The wonderful knight defeated everyone here fairly and nobly, and even gave some a second chance. Could it really be that the true winner was ruined by the cowardly cheating of his opponent? The fairy threw aside the fragment of his joke weapon. What was going on? What did this gesture mean? Was the pie really giving up? No one could defeat the best warriors with a child's toy in this costume, let alone defeat magic when the strength is running out. Wilhelmina stopped breathing for a moment. The whole crowd was already aching for him with all their hearts. There was only one step left to their goal. However, a noble knight will never give up. The fairy will fight against the magic sword with bare hands. Damn it, what is this guy doing? Let Nada come to her senses, it's too dangerous. What kind of fist fight is there against an enchanted sword? Even a training weapon can cause serious injury. No warrior can stand up to a sword with his fists. So even without a weapon, Sir Nada is not going to give up. How annoying it is. Let him lose already. Magic is not eternal. And once Derek's sword's magic mana runs out, he won't last a minute against this beast. What the hell? The black horse didn't have time to parry the fairy's blows with his enchanted sword. It can't be. What the hell? This psycho blocked a sword blow with one hand. Was he raised by ninjas or something? This is just nonsense. Nada delivered a crushing blow with his fist right into the face of the slippery rogue. He howled in pain. The fairy is simply incredible. The black horse flew to the side and fell to the floor. Even the governor jumped up. This guy is just a phenomenon. It's impossible. It's all complete nonsense. Derek has spent years elevating himself at the expense of belittling this winged one. Nada merely cold-bloodedly invited the cowardly offspring to continue, without showing a drop of malice. This guy, why does the governor need an army at all if he has Natasha? The same question occurred to him. The Fae's hand-to-hand combat skills aren't as good as his weapon skills, but even at that, he's incredible. No matter what happens next, Derek will deprive Nat of his exceptional power. He still has the magic sword. The bastard rushed at the fairy. Swinging his sword, Nada confidently dodged each of his blows. Everyone has a weak spot, and if Derek couldn't find it in the ring, he'll push it outside of it. Well, the incomparable upstart was caught. The scoundrel took out a secret dagger from his robe. In addition to dirty tricks and the use of magic, this spawn also smuggled a blade under his cloak. Wait, the tip of the dagger isn't pointed at Nat. Derek knows he can dodge it even like that. But where is he aiming? What is this idiot trying to achieve? Even Derek could hit the target at arm's length. No way! The bastard sent his dagger towards the defenseless lady, knowing that the fairies would certainly rush to her defense. Wilhelmina immediately realized the rotten commander's plan, but it was too late. The dagger was faster than her. Could this really be how her newfound life ended, and where and as whom will she be reborn after? The crowd of soldiers gasped in fear. How dare the captain commit such baseness? He is not worthy of being a knight. Scarlet blood flowed down the white glove. The blade of the sword cut through the fairy's flesh. The border governor hastened to cover the girl with his body. She was not injured. However, this was no longer necessary. Nada managed to intercept the dagger in time. It's just incredible. Sir Nada immediately flew to the elder lady. Her ladyship is fine. Fairy couldn't even imagine that this rotten spawn would do such a thing. Nobody could have imagined this. Wait, are these real wings, like in cartoons? Well, the Raspberry Pi left the tournament arena, and Derek's nasty laugh was heard. But everyone knows that as soon as a participant crosses its boundaries, he loses, which means the horse wins. The vile scum could only ensure victory in this way, and the noble Nada again preferred honor and morality. Well, Derek only cares about winning. He doesn't care that it was unfair. He doesn't care how it was achieved. It's his now. Rotten, cowardly scum. He could hang him for attempting to kill the elder Duchess of Leighton. Everyone saw that there was an exit from the ring. What difference does it make? For what reason, no one should worry, because the rules do not say anything about it. Let the cowardly scum better tell in front of all the spectators why he threw the dagger at the eldest Duchess. There was no such thing as someone deliberately throwing a dagger. What the hell? Why is this girl slandering the brave knight? The heroine saw with her own eyes how the slippery coward threw his weapon at her in order to drive his opponent out of the arena. And such a method, in the opinion of this scum, is worthy of the title of knight. What kind of nonsense is this girl talking? A knight would never resort to dirty tricks, that's right. Derek is trash, not a knight. This girl didn't catch the dagger in the pie. They don't teach you to observe the rules of decency in the army either. There's no need to demonstrate your baseness. Everyone has seen it all. Aren't border troops supposed to observe ethics during fights? They are obliged to. And who is the presenter in the cat mask? Why does she communicate so freely with the great Margrave? Besides being pathetic and cowardly, Derek was also stupid because he gave himself away. He knew he was fighting Natasha. How is this, that is, Sir Nada was in the pie costume all this time? Derek said that he was much stronger than the fairies. This is all nonsense. Why would a commander attack some stranger? What good would it do him? There is no need for this girl to slander the winner of the tournament. He is actually also a commander. How this idiot has gotten on my nerves. This non-entity knows exactly who Wilhelmina is. And if this isn't a dirty move to win, then it's an attempt on the life of the Duchess of Leighton. Now let this vile scumbag choose for himself what exactly he tried to do in front of a dozen witnesses. Senior Mrs. Leighton is disappointed. She prepared this holiday for the border troops, and here is such a mess. As Margrave himself assesses this situation, it is his responsibility. He asks for forgiveness and will sort it out himself. Who would have thought that the Duchess would be behind the fairies? Derek thought it was a commoner. That is, a company commander can throw a dagger at an innocent commoner in order to achieve a false victory. No, it's just this Nat's mistake. The fairy didn't catch the dagger, let him be blamed. Others too, what that is, Commander Derek is now saying in front of everyone that other knights are also involved in this. The knights in the spectator stands roared angrily. It seemed that no one supported the bastard. And what will the noble Sir Nada say about this? Was it all an accident, or a deliberate and rotten trick? The handsome knight took off his mask. Sweat was running down his face. He had endured absolutely everything, and for everyone he was a true winner. Why should a fairy decide the fate of a commander? He is lower in rank and is generally an interested party. Sir Nada believes that all knights who are members of the Order of Margrave Isanon should do no harm. Sir Nat had all the best qualities of a knight. He didn't care about a deserved loss as long as he saved his life. The nobility and strength of spirit of the fairies knows no bounds, and since the execution is cancelled, the tournament will continue. After all, the long-awaited final battle was prevented by the rotten impulses of Commander Derek, but he will have a chance to improve. There will be a repeat battle. Using magic, unregistered weapons, and the assassination attempt will be as if it never happened. And to avoid further incidents now that everyone is convinced of Nat's true phenomenality, they can take off their masks. In case of refusal to participate in the final round on fair terms, an investigation will be conducted by the governor himself. The Margrave supports Her Grace's proposal, although he would gladly punish the scoundrel to the fullest extent. Derek can no longer justify his worthlessness with Nat's beauty. Everyone saw how strong he was. Without dirty tricks, the fairy will smear him in the first second in front of everyone. The commander gives up, he lost. The Border Knights combat tournament was over, and all the warriors celebrated their day with a feast. It was a hard and long day, but they got through it and it all ended well. The Margrave is amazed at how skillfully Her Grace handled the situation. And here comes the border governor. Have the festive speeches and toasts really come to an end already? The Margrave chose disciplinary measures instead of 1,000 words. And as a result, the atmosphere during the awards ceremony was tense, which is why she wanted to make the governor a commentator. The Margrave is unhappy with the outcome, but it will serve as a lesson. Thanks to the Duchess, Nat's fate has become more pleasant. The governor heard that before her marriage, the lady did not participate in politics or social life, but it's hard to believe the elder lady is a master at managing the crowd, be it knights or nobles. What is the young duchess compared to the great warrior of the western lands who has survived so many hardships? What is this about, my lady? Could something like this be done alone? All this was possible only thanks to the tacit consent of the Margrave. So there is no point in rewriting her merits from the very beginning. The governor indulged her every word. And why did this stern man's attitude towards the girl become so soft? As if she were his granddaughter, after the holiday the governor will return to the border. He will not be at the pre-New Year reception. But the Margrave will try to visit the New Year. Why does the man report this? What's going on? Why did this great warrior kneel before a lowly noblewoman? Wilhelmina feels uneasy about having all the power of the western lands concentrated at her feet. The great warrior handed the girl a seal with his family crest, an excellent sign of the House of Isanon. The great warrior of the western lands, Margrave Titan Isanon, swears, hand on heart here and now, that the Right Honorable Mrs. Wilhelmina Layton rightfully holds her title and fully deserves it.